Empire of Steel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526 Fall. On the stone bridge, the prince and Xiao Wangsun stood opposite each other. Xiao Wangsun's words made the prince furious, and he roared, "As long as you die, I will be the emperor of the Great Yu Kingdom." "No, you will not be the emperor of the Great Yu Kingdom, you are just a pawn of King Zhao. Since the birth of the 13th prince, he has been using your desire for the throne to obtain the supreme power he wants. Now King Zhao takes him with him. The troops have arrived, and you will be the next to die. Nizi, you have destroyed the Great Yu Kingdom and everything in the royal family." Speaking of anger, Xiao Wangsun's face suddenly turned red. "Impossible, absolutely impossible. I am the emperor, and King Zhao has to listen to me. I won't believe your words anymore." The prince shook his head and suddenly raised the sharp sword in his hand to stab Xiao Wangsun. At this moment, the guards of the outer palace looked at the prince in horror, and the scene of killing the king was staged in front of them. Blood flowed down the icy blade of the sword, and Xiao Wangsun took a mouthful of blood on the body of the prince. At this moment, Xiao Wangsun's eyes suddenly showed a hint of relief. He didn't escape, not just because the poisoning was too deep and he was powerless to return to the sky, but more because he blamed himself for himself. If he hadn't supported the prince, he wouldn't be in such a situation now. If it wasn't for his connivance with the Zhao family, King Zhao would not be arrogant every day. If it wasn't for his suspicions, King Ning and King Kang would not have died and would have weakened the royal family, nor would the barbarians occupy Yan'an in 16 state affairs. I'm sorry for my ancestors, I'm sorry for my loyal ministers, I'm sorry for my people. Life was passing little by little, and Xiao Wangsun's heart was filled with remorse. After a mouthful of blood was sprayed on the prince, Xiao Wangsun used all his strength to slash at the prince with his sword. At this time, the prince was startled by Xiao Wangsun's blood. When he came back to his senses, he saw Xiao Wangsun's sharp sword slashing at him, and he immediately dodged in shock. But because the distance was too close, it was too late for him to dodge. A scream rang out. The prince clasped his arms and screamed, and one of his arms was chopped to the ground by Xiao Wangsun. "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." The severe pain drove the prince into madness, and he kicked the crumbling Xiao Wangsun. At this time, Xiao Wangsun could no longer hold on, and his consciousness gradually blurred. "Kill you. Kill you." The prince still didn't relieve his hatred, and kicked Xiao Wangsun's body with all his strength, but the sound of a gunshot suddenly woke him up. He looked at the source of the gunshots, and saw that the guards of the outer palace kept falling under the rounds of fire from the musketeers, and Luo Quan was looking towards him. Seeing this scene, the prince was shocked, and he said to the guard beside him, "Go and light the beacon." "Yes, your highness." Derling of the personal guard immediately ran to the east palace, and after a while, a cloud of smoke rose into the sky. King Zhao, who was coming to the palace leisurely, was overjoyed when he saw the beacon fire, and he said, "The prince has already lit the beacon fire, and Xiao Wangsun is dead. He immediately kills the palace and catches the rebellion." Yes. The generals behind King Zhao immediately rushed towards the palace along Suzaku Avenue with the cavalry. At this time, in the palace, under the attack of the musketeers, the guards of the outer palace were scattered one after another, and the prince also followed the guards and fled to the east palace. Seeing Xiao Wangsun wearing a dragon robe on the stone bridge, Luo Quan rushed over on his horse. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." Luo Quan knelt down in front of Xiao Wangsun and shook Xiao Wangsun gently. It seems that he heard Luo Quan's voice. Xiao Wangsun opened his eyes like a flashback. He suddenly grabbed Luo Quan's hand and said, "I'm sorry, I'm so suspicious of you. I didn't think I saw you before I died, Your Majesty." Luo Quan's voice choked. Xiao Wangsun held Luo Quan's hand even tighter, and he continued, "The only person in the world who can turn the tide is King Qi. I have already made a will to let him inherit the throne. You should assist him as if you were assisting me. I don't want concubines, princes and princesses to be insulted. If they can't escape, you can kill them." "Yes, Your Majesty." Luo Quan's Hong nodded. After saying this, Xiao Wangsun closed his eyes. He understood Luo Quan. If there was no such final order, he would definitely fight to the death, but he did not want such a humorous minister to go with him. Taking a deep look at Xiao Wangsun, Luo Quan suddenly stood up. At this time, the palace was already in chaos. The concubines, princes, and princesses were in chaos. Some concubines followed concubine Zhen and fled to the direction of the royal garden, while some concubines were so frightened that they cried and didn't know what to do. Seeing this scene, Luo Quan sighed, and he ordered, "Protect the prince and princess immediately and go to the royal garden." Yes, General. At this time, Luo Quan's army was mixed with musketeers, private soldiers and some left and right armed guard soldiers in the city. The arrival of King Zhao still made many soldiers understand, but at this time the general situation has passed. The city wall, the palace wall, is still in the hands of the prince. A steady stream of cavalry is entering Chang'an City, and now he has gathered only 7 or 8,000 soldiers, and most of the soldiers have fled following Luo Quan. The soldiers searched for the prince, princess and concubines in the palace, and everyone who was willing to follow them went to the direction of the royal garden together. At this time, in the royal garden, the secret guard had completed the preparation for the heating of the hot air balloon. And the ministers of the main war faction from Fiji and others also arrived with their families. Luo Quan appeared with the soldiers, which made them overjoyed. "General, take your people to Chang'an Wharf. All the King Zhao merchant ships docked at Chang'an Wharf this time have received His Highness's orders. You will be safe when you board." Li Sam said. Luo Quan looked at the hot air balloon and said, "Isn't it a right on this one, General? These 2 hot air balloons are only used when the situation is at their worst. Now the plan has been implemented smoothly, and there is no need. Now we have to use it to lure the enemy." Li Sam said, "The real escape method is still a boat." Luo Quan nodded. "It seems that the secret guard has 2 plans. This hot air balloon is just a last resort, and I am afraid that the purpose is only to save Xianfei, and this ship is the second plan, which is to rescue most of the fleeing people." Luo Quan, "I thought I would never see you again." Fiji laughed suddenly. He said, "Let's go. Concubine Zhen has already boarded the boat, and the rest are us." Luo Quan nodded. "The emperor left an edict to let King Qi inherit the throne, and ordered me to protect the son and the princess, so I can only keep this old life." King Qi. Fiji nodded. "It is the last wise decision to make such a decision in this situation, but even if there is a widow, it is of little use, and the division of the Great Yu Kingdom is inevitable." "You're right. Vassal kings with different surnames have waited too long for the imperial family to decline, and now they can finally stand on their own feet justifiably." Luo Quan sighed. Chapter 527. The Prince in Number 039's End. The hot air balloon took off in the direction of the wind and headed north. Li San glanced at the hot air balloon in the sky, turned and followed the path of the royal garden to Chang'an Pier. These days, he has been planning the route of retreat day and night, and now his hard work has not been in vain. After descending the mountain, he and the remaining secret guards rushed to the pier. At this time, most of the soldiers, officials, concubines, and maids on the dock had already boarded the ship, and some merchant ships left for King Zhao before he came. Now at the dock is the last merchant ship. Looking at the hydrogen balloon in the sky, Li San and his guards boarded the merchant ship. In the sound of the boatman's horns, the merchant ship floated downstream along the rapids of the Yellow River. The cavalry could only watch them go. However, in order to prevent a large-scale cavalry from besieging and blocking, he still let the hydrogen balloon take off. On the hydrogen balloon, the members of the secret guard changed into the clothes of concubine Zhen, and they were responsible for inducing the pursuit of King Zhao. When Li San and others boarded the ship, King Zhao's troops and horses had completed the encirclement of Chang'an City. In front of the palace gate, King Zhao and Zhao Yuanlian rode their horses and swaggered into the palace from the main gate. "Father, I didn't expect that one day we could ride horses into the palace," Zhao Yuanlian said, looking at the majestic buildings in the palace. King Zhao laughed when he heard the words, "Ha ha ha, from now on we can all ride in and out of the palace. Not only that, we can also live in the palace." Father said, "Very much, but why don't you live in this palace without beauties? My son will catch a few beauties in this palace for the father. After all, there are 3,000 beauties in the palace, which can be said to be a collection of beauties from all over the world." King Zhao became more and more happy, and he said to Zhao Yuanlian, "You still know my mind best. Not only beauty, this city of Chang'an is very rich, and it can provide us with the money to forge muskets." "Yes, King Father." Zhao Yuanlian pulled back his horse and led a pair of cavalry towards the inner courtyard of the palace. At this moment, a team of imperial guards and the prince from the East Palace came to the side. The prince was very happy to see King Zhao. Now that his wound has been bandaged, and enduring the severe pain, the prince said, "King Zhao, you but it's finally here." King Zhao was riding on a horse, and he didn't mean to come down. He looked at Xiao Wangxun's body on the stone bridge and said, "You killed the emperor, of course, it's exactly the same as the original plan." The prince gritted his teeth and said, "Now that the emperor is dead, I should be called me soon." This time King Zhao has escorted him well, And I will definitely reward King Zhao greatly. Really? That's why I have to thank the prince. King Zhao said lightly, and then he said to the left and right generals, the prince has usurped the throne, come here, and take down such a wolf-hearted person. The prince's smile stiffened for a moment. He watched King Zhao's soldiers approaching him in disbelief. He said anxiously, Uncle, what do you mean? What do you mean? Murdering the monarch and usurping the throne is a capital crime, and the old minister is loyal to the emperor, and naturally he wants to act for the heavens. Zhao Wang said loudly. Looking like he was righteous at this moment, the prince understood no matter how stupid he was, and his face turned pale with fright. Ding 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 dong. Just when the prince was hesitant, there was a sound of weapons falling behind the prince, and the guards behind the prince all dropped their ice blades. The leading guard general said, His Royal Highness, the murder of the king has nothing to do with me. This is all done by the prince alone, and King Zhao spares his life well. As long as you can serve the king, this king will spare you the innocents. King Zhao laughed. The prince had the pain of a broken arm, and now he was charged with murdering the king. At this moment, his body trembled violently, and fear quickly filled his heart. At this moment, he sounded Zhao Wangxun's words. It is impossible for King Zhao to make him emperor. At this moment, he finally understood that everything was a conspiracy of King Zhao. Thinking of this, he completely fell into despair. In order to survive, he said with tears in his eyes, Uncle, I am your nephew. Uncle, please forgive me. King Zhao was unmoved. He said to the generals, What are you still doing? Put the prince in the prison and wait for the new emperor to rule after he ascends the throne. Yes, Your Highness. A group of wolf-like soldiers immediately rushed forward to grab the prince and escort him out. On the way, the prince cried, but no one sympathized with him at this time. King Zhao asked the guards and said, Where are the queen and the 13th prince? His Royal Highness, the Empress and the 13th prince are under strict supervision in the Eastern Palace, said the general of the Imperial Guard. Take this king over there. Zhao Wang said. The guards nodded, got up and took King Zhao to the East Palace. Under the guidance of the guards, King Zhao arrived at a side hall in the East Palace. Your Highness, the queen is here. King Zhao nodded, hesitated for a while, and pushed open the door of the side hall. One rung in the side hall. Empress Zhao was holding the 13 princes and singing a song in a low voice with a sad voice. The movement outside the door made her look up, and when she saw the face of the person who came, she suddenly sneered. It turned out to be King Zhao. Congratulations to His Royal Highness King Zhao. The planning for so many years has finally come true today. Queen Zhao's indifference made Zhao Wang feel uncomfortable for a while, and he said, One wrong, why are you talking to me like this? We are a family. Empress Zhao sneered, Since you are here, the emperor must be dead, and the crown prince didn't follow. You must be imprisoned for the crime of murdering the king. Why are you here for me? Is it for the 13th prince in my arms? After being said by Queen Zhao, King Zhao's face was a little stiff. He said, One wrong, you and Zhao Wangxun are just husband and wife, but we are blood and blood. Now we Zhao who have the world, aren't you happy? Should I be happy? Empress Zhao had hatred in her eyes. My husband is dead, and my son is about to die. The baby in my arms is just your puppet, and the future is also unknown, but you ask if you are happy or not. King Zhao was suffocated. He said, One wrong, for this world, everything is worth it. I know you have lost a lot, but you have exchanged the supreme imperial power for the Zhao family, and when the 13th prince is older, I'll let him rest on me, and I promise I won't kill him. Don't even think about it. Empress Zhao's eyes suddenly turned red, and she suddenly raised the baby in her arms. Even if I fall to death, he won't let your tricks succeed. King Zhao was startled, and he immediately said nervously, One wrong, why are you doing this? Do you really have the heart to kill your own flesh and blood? I promise you, wouldn't it be good for him to be the emperor instead of letting him sit on the throne? Empress Zhao shook her head and said, I don't believe you. You can never get the throne. You will only be a chaotic thief in the Great Yu Kingdom. After saying that, she suddenly threw the baby in her arms. Chapter 528 King Zhao Discussion. P.S. There are 2 more chapters a little later. Quack. A burst of baby crying suddenly sounded, and Empress Zhao, who was about to drop the baby, suddenly hesitated. Motherhood made her heart unbearable for a while. At this moment, King Zhao seized the opportunity and suddenly reached out and grabbed the 13th prince in the hands of Queen Zhao. Queen Zhao was shocked, but it was already too late. King Zhao's strength was so great that she was not allowed to snatch it at all. Holding the 13th prince in his arms, King Zhao's face suddenly turned cold. He said to the guards, Watch the queen. No one can see her without my order. Yes, Your Highness. The soldier in black armor immediately closed the door of the side hall, leaving only Queen Zhao's horse cry. King Zhao walked outside the door and said to the general behind him, "Go to the city immediately to find a wet nurse for the 13th prince." Without delay the general clasped his fists in response, and left with a group of men. At this moment, another group of cavalry stopped in front of him, and a general got off the horse and said, "Your Highness, concubine Zhen and others probably ran away on something in the sky." King Zhao looked up at the sky at this moment, two huge objects slowly drifting from the sky in between. And in the baskets below the huge spheres were some women in exquisite costumes. This must be the hot air balloon in Yuan Liang's mouth. Huh? This King Qi is really not an easy opponent, but Yuan Liang said that the hot air balloon can't fly very far, and now you immediately bring a team to chase. Zhao Wang looked at the balloon in the sky and said the generals left, and another general came back to report after a while, saying, "Your Highness, King Zhao merchant ships left at Chang'an Pier." The people at the dock said that these merchant ships transported many soldiers and officials to leave King Zhao merchant ship. King Zhao's brows furrowed. Now his attitude towards Xiaoming is a bit complicated, because Zhao's muskets and artillery are all purchased from King Zhao. This time King Qi sends someone to rescue him. If he offends too deeply, the arms business will naturally be impossible, but thinking that now they have mastered the forging method of arquebus, and this time they captured a lot of artillery in Chang'an City, so he said, "You also sent a pair of men and horses to chase along the riverbank." Yes. The general led the way at this time. King Zhao glanced at the hot air balloon, and then glanced at the direction of the pier. He couldn't help but hesitate. Now he was a little unsure whether this concubine Zhen was going with the boat or the hot air balloon. It's just that the chasing troops he sent can only be divided into two chases. Looking at the hot air balloon again, King Zhao walked to the stone bridge. Zhao Wangsun died, but before the 13th prince ascended the throne, Zhao Wangsun must be held a state funeral, which is a royal etiquette that cannot be abandoned. They were only able to hold the enthronement ceremony after the state funeral, when the 13th prince supported the throne and began his rule over the Great Yu Kingdom. Naturally, he was too lazy to bother with these complicated etiquette, but he had already sent someone to convene the officials of Chang'an. With these people, Zhao Wangsun's funeral could be successfully completed. Thinking of being able to control Chang'an soon, King Zhao's face became more and more happy at this time. The King Zhao merchant ship carrying the escape from Chang'an City had already traveled a long distance along the rapids. Looking at the beacon fire in Chang'an City from afar, Luo Quan and Fiji had mixed feelings. This is really a national disaster, a shame for the Great Yu country. Fiji looked sad and his tone was a little low. Luo Quan's mood was also low, and he said to Fiji, "Now that's the truth, no amount of sighing is useless. You still think about how King Zhao told Xiaoming about this? Well, more than that, so many courtiers followed, and it is also a problem to arrive in King Zhao." Fiji shook his head. Luo Hong said at this time, "His Royal Highness has just passed the government affairs reform recently. This domestic official position is very vacant. Maybe His Highness is very welcome, but, just what?" Luo Quan asked. "When I was in King Zhao, Luo Xin told me that, in fact, His Royal Highness does not dislike officials outside King Zhao, but if you want to serve in King Zhao's officialdom, you must study at Bowen College and pass the relevance exams." Luo Hong said. Fiji nodded. "This Yuir told me that since he has entered King Zhao, he will naturally follow the local customs, not to mention that the current highness will soon become His Majesty." Speaking of this, the expressions of the three of them were a little gloomy. Luo Quan said, "Now that King Zhao occupies Chang'an, he will definitely support the 13th prince to succeed him. If so, wouldn't His Majesty's edict be useless? Not only that, but the letter of entry that His Majesty asked King Qi to sign is still in the imperial study, and King Zhao can even use this to announce to the world that he does not recognize the emperor's current edict." Luo Hong said, "Actually, it is meaningless to leave the edict without the edict. Now the world is in chaos, and they are in their own hands. Even if there is no edict, the King of Qi is the royal bloodline." "Well, you're right. In this situation, the edict is true or false," Fiji said. After waiting for King Zhao, "We will discuss the matter with King Qi." When the three were talking, the news of the chaos in Chang'an quickly spread to all parts of the Great Yu Kingdom. This time, the third prince and the fourth prince fled separately. On the way, they spread the news of the prince's rebellion. For a time, the people on the royal land were panicked. The news of Li San arrived in King Zhao 3 days after the 800 miles of the secret guard. After opening the secret letter from Chang'an, Zhao Ming's heart was ups and downs. "The Great Yu Kingdom is in chaos, Your Highness. What's wrong?" Pang Yukin, Zhan Xingcheng, Niu Ben and others were all in the palace of King Qi, and they saw the change in Xiao Ming's expression. Xiao Ming handed the secret letter to Pang Yukin. You can read it for yourself. When the three heard the words, they immediately gathered together and looked at it. When they learned that the prince had murdered the king, and that King Zhao brought the black armored cavalry and the barbarian cavalry into Chang'an City, the three exchanged glances at the same time. Not only did they not panic, but Pang Yukin said to Xiao Ming, His Royal Highness, with the character of King Zhao, he will definitely not let the prince ascend the throne. I am afraid that the 13th prince will become the puppet of King Zhao, so we don't need to listen at all. The order of the imperial court. Yes, after this time, I'm afraid it's not only us who think so. Whether it's King Wei, King Yuan or other vassal kings, they will no longer obey the orders of the imperial court. In the past, he and the imperial court were very close to each other. Now I am afraid that it is only time to become independent. Problem. Zhan Xingcheng added. Niu Ben is a soldier who always goes straight. He said, now is an opportunity for your highness. When the world is in chaos, it is time for the times to create heroes. Both Pang Yukin and Zhan Xingcheng's words are more euphemistic, but Niu Ben's words are very straightforward at present. The matter of Chang'an is not clear. We will discuss it when Li Sam comes back. Chapter 529. Everyone meets. The boat is still floating on the broad yellow river. One day after the King Zhao merchant ships left Chang'an Pier, King Zhao's soldiers and horses appeared on the riverbank. Now that they have been drifting in the river for 5 days, according to Li San's words, they will be able to arrive at King Zhao Pier in 2 days at most. These days, they have been staying on merchant ships, because they have been prepared in advance, and the merchant ships have sufficient food in the cabins, which is enough to ensure that they can live on board. It's just that the closer they are to King Zhao, the more nervous the officials on the ship are. They are not familiar with Qi Wang, and they also don't know what will happen these days. Many people are deliberately getting close to Fiji. This Fiji's Hongshu is the father-in-law of King Qi. Maybe he can say a few good words for himself in front of King Qi. The boat continued to float in the river, and in the afternoon a group of cavalry suddenly appeared on the bank of the river, and these cavalry wore silver breastplates. After seeing the merchant ships, the cuirassiers gestured at the fleet for a while, and then one person raised a flag on the shore. Li San on the merchant ship was overjoyed when he saw Semaphore and these cuirassiers, and then asked the secret guard to beat Semaphore back. After getting clear information, the cuirassiers began to follow the merchant ships along the riverbank to King Zhao Fiji's Hongshu. There is news from Li San. He said that this is the cuirassier of the King Zhao army. It is estimated that His Royal Highness King Qi sent us to protect us. The soldier guard in the stern came over and said to Fiji, in order to ensure that the information on the ship is accessible, there will be a person at the stern of each ship who is responsible for communicating. When everyone heard the words, they breathed a sigh of relief. Fiji said, it seems that His Royal Highness has received news from Chang'an, so he sent these cuirassiers out to protect us. The other officials on the boat looked happy. King Qi's action made a stone in their hearts fall to the ground. It seemed that King Qi took them seriously with the protection of the cuirassiers. The atmosphere on the merchant ship immediately became noisy. People on each merchant ship discussed King Zhao with each other, and Xiao Ming's name was frequently mentioned. On the 7th day, the fleet saw King Zhao Wharf from a distance, and merchant ships lined up along the riverbank along the King Zhao Wharf. The prosperity of King Zhao Wharf surprised them. In their opinion, the prosperity of King Zhao Wharf has surpassed Chang'an Wharf. Seeing that they were about to arrive at Chang'an, everyone on the merchant ship stood up. Unlike yesterday's discussion, everyone's faces were solemn, the ship was terrifyingly quiet, and everyone was worried about their own fate. The pier was getting closer. When everyone saw the scene on the pier, a young man in a blue round-neck gown was standing on the pier. Beside him are 4 beauties with outstanding appearance. Especially the women beside the youth are even more beautiful, while beside the 5 are some people dressed as officials. It's Sister Luluo and Sister Aster. Liuli looked around on the boat, and when she saw Luluo and Aster, she suddenly shouted. The maids in the Bishu Pavilion also saw the direction of the pier at this time, and they jumped and screamed with joy when they found Aster and Luluo. Liuli entered the cabin directly. Concubine Zhen has been in the cabin these days. Because of Xiao Wangxun's death, Concubine Zhen has been in tears these days. When she learned that Xiao Ming was on the dock, she finally showed a smile. The boats of Fiji and Luo Quan were in the first place. After the boat docked at the pier, everyone walked down the inclined plank farther. Seeing Fiji, Fei Yu shouted excitedly, and tears fell. Luo Quan and Luo Hong looked at Luo Xin with joy in their eyes, putting away their excitement. Fiji and Luo Quan and their son bowed to Xiao Ming at the same time and said, "See, Your Highness, no gift, everyone is tired." Xiao Ming smiled and said to the 3 of them in Fiji, He looked at the group of merchant ships, and now these are the only people who escaped at this critical moment. The fact that they believed in themselves and fled to King Zhao was enough to show that these people were all for him, and after his understanding, these officials were basically the main war officials in Chang'an. Many officials have contributed their own strength to him in the court. Luo Quan and Fiji looked at each other, and Fiji said sadly at this time, His Royal Highness, the old minister is incompetent. The emperor still went. Speaking of this, Luo Quan and Luo Hong showed sad expressions at the same time. Xiaoming sighed in his heart, and said, this king already knows about this matter? The prince murdered the king and rebelled, and the king of Zhao helped Zhou to commit crimes. This blood debt will be recovered by this king for the father and emperor His Royal Highness. Luo Quan and Fiji's eyes were a little wet when they heard the words, and this promise touched their hearts for a while. At this time, more and more ships docked, and the ship where Concubine Zhen was also docked at this time. With the help of a group of court ladies, Concubine Zhen walked down slowly. Seeing Concubine Zhen, Xiaoming took a few steps forward, bowed and said, Concubine Mother Ming'er. Seeing Xiaoming, Concubine Zhen couldn't hold back her grief any longer. She fell into Xiaoming's arms and burst into tears, while the other palace maids also sobbed softly. As women, they have experienced too much these days. Xiaoming patted Concubine Zhen's back lightly, and Concubine Zhen's arrival gave him complete peace of mind. What he is most afraid of is that Concubine Zhen falls into the hands of King Zhao, so he will be helpless in dealing with King Zhao. After all, in the Great Yu Kingdom, filial piety is the first. Even if the parents of the first-rank officials died, they would go home and observe their filial piety for 3 years. This filial piety is the standard by which the world measures a person. In this matter of saving Concubine Zhen is not only for him, but also for the officials of King Zhao. Mother Concubine, condolences. The heroic spirit of the father and the emperor in the sky must not want to see the mother and Concubine too sad. Xiaoming said. Concubine Zhen nodded when she heard the words. At this time, Lulo and Ziwen stepped forward to help Concubine Zhen towards a carriage, which would take Concubine Zhen to Prince Qi's mansion. After Concubine Zhen, ordinary soldiers came down. At this time, Luo Hong reorganized these soldiers. Seeing these soldiers, Xiaoming showed a smile on his face. Now that the world is in chaos, what he lacks is soldiers. And this Chang'an rebellion not only brought him some excellent officials, but also these excellent generals and soldiers. After Fiji saluted Xiaoming, Fiji immediately started a conversation with Fiji, and Luo Quan and Luo Xin also talked about everyday things. The rest of the officials got off the boat to see Xiaoming one by one. At the same time, Xiaoming also introduced Pang Yukin and others to these officials from Chang'an. After an introduction on the pier, Xiaoming said to Fiji and Luo Quan, everyone, let's go into the city and talk about it in detail. Fiji and Luo Quan nodded. He was about to talk to Xiaoming about this edict, and now the Chang'an rebellion also needs to discuss with Xiaoming how to deal with it. Chapter 530, Accumulate grains and become king slowly. The blazing sun bakes the earth. Unlike in the past, King Zhao Wharf is busy today with merchant ships from Chang'an. There are more than 7,000 people who fled from Chang'an to King Zhao this time, and so many people need to be placed in King Zhao City. When Xiaoming followed Fiji and Luo Quan to King Zhao City, Pang Yukin took King Zhao officials to take charge of these officials. Food, clothing, housing and transportation in King Zhao. At this time, on the cement official road leading to King Zhao City, 3 carriages were galloping, and the crisp sound of horses' hooves stepping on the cement road made Fiji and Luo Quan stick their heads out at the same time to look at the ground. This must be the cement road in King Zhao, Feng Shilin once said, and it really lives up to its reputation. Fiji said. Luo Quan also nodded. It seems that it has just rained in King Zhao, and the concrete road is not muddy at all. It is even cleaner than the gravel road in Chang'an City. Fiji nodded when he heard the words, and then he looked at the people who entered the city. The people were all wearing clean and tidy clothes, and their faces were rosy and plump. Obviously, life here is good. After entering the city, Fiji's eyes couldn't rest. He found that there were many merchants in King Zhao City, and the density of such merchants seemed to have surpassed Chang'an City, and the things that these merchants are pulling on their carriages are even more bizarre. In addition to some big merchants pulling the carriages, there are also some traveling merchants who carry the burdens to shuttle among the folks in King Zhao. Some names came from the mouths of the traveling merchants, and the people in the city who were attracted did not seem to be stingy with the copper coins in their hands. At the same time, there are some people on the street wearing green long gowns with waist knives. These people are not soldiers, because they have a word police embroidered on their arms instead of soldier. These people in police uniforms were cruising back and forth on the streets, and some idlers squatting in the corners were terrified when they saw these people. as if they were flooded beasts. In addition to this kind of people wearing strange clothes, he also saw 4 or 5 kinds of people wearing strange clothes. Because he and Luo Quan were riding in a carriage, he could only suppress these questions and wait to ask Xiaoming. The carriage circled around the city for a while, then stopped at a government office in front of the street, and everyone got off the carriage. Face Hongshu, General Luo, please. Xiaoming said to the two of them. Luo Quan and Fiji were still shocked by the scene of King Zhao, turned their heads, and looked at the King Zhao Chamber of Commerce opposite His Royal Highness. I used to only know about King Zhao in the newspapers, but I was shocked when I saw it today. Fiji sighed. Luo Quan also said, that's right. How do you feel that this is not the Great Yu Kingdom? When you arrive in King Zhao this time, too, you will have a deep understanding of the peculiarities of this King Zhao. After all, you will live here in the future. Today, let's talk about the Chang'an Rebellion. Speaking of this, Fiji said, His Royal Highness, before leaving, the Emperor handed over the edict to the concubine Zhen. In the edict, the Emperor decided to make His Highness the Crown Prince. Now that the royal family has died, the country cannot live without a king for a day. After that, choose a day to become the Emperor widow. Xiaoming was quite surprised. Concubine Zhen did mention some edict before getting on the carriage, but Xiaoming said that when he went back, Concubine Zhen didn't say anything else, but he never thought that at the last moment, Xiao Wangxuan would take the throne for myself. It's just that there is no use for him now. Now that Chang'an is occupied by King Zhao, it is inevitable that the next 13 princes will be established as emperors. Even if he takes out his edict at this time, he will probably be called false by King Zhao and others, but for him, this edict is not completely useless. In this era, everyone pays attention to being famous for their teachers. Now that he has a widow in his body, he is the prince of the Great Yu Kingdom. If he beats anyone, he will occupy the law. Of course, others are willing or not. Being beaten is another matter. Luo Quan added, His Royal Highness, the Emperor also told the old minister about this last edict before he went there. There is nothing wrong with it. I hope that His Royal Highness can raise the Master of the King to conquer the King of Zhao to quell the chaos of the King of Zhao. Hearing this, Fiji rolled his eyes and said to Luo Quan, this time King Zhao's entry into the capital is not easy. Don't forget the barbarian cavalry in King Zhao's army. In the view of Xiaoguan, King Zhao must have borrowed troops and horses from the barbarians. Recognize a thief as a father. Xiaoming's heart sank immediately. If the barbarians are added, the situation in the Great Yu Kingdom will become more complicated, he said. Although this king also wants to attack King Zhao immediately, the situation in the Great Yu country does not seem to be clear now. If other vassal kings also have different opinions, how should this king deal with it? This remark made Luo Quan silent. He only paid attention to the speed of his words for a while, but he forgot the situation Xiaoming was facing. He said, His Royal Highness, it is the old minister who is reckless. Fiji pondered at this time and said, Is your highness worried about King Wei and King Yuan? Well, that's right, the fiefs of King Wei and King Yuan are both connected to this king's fiefs. If this king raises troops to go to Chang'an at this time, and the back is empty, when the two attack, this king will be completely defeated. Xiaoming said, now that Zhao Wangxuan is dead, King Wei and King Yuan must have their own thoughts. He will not believe them. After all, he has been tricked by King Wei, and he has seen the shamelessness of King Yuan. Fiji nodded. His Royal Highness said, very well. For today's plan, His Highness should strengthen the defense of the states, wait for changes, and at the same time invite King Wei and King Yuan to discuss the Chang'an Rebellion. I'm afraid they won't come. Xiaoming's eyes flickered. How could King Wei and King Yuan come to his fief in this situation? Just like he wouldn't go to their fief. In his opinion now, at most, they send envoys to each other. Fiji understood Xiaoming's meaning after a little thought, and he sighed, as he expected. Now all the vassal kings will be suspicious of each other. Xiaoming continued, in addition to this war, the king's trade losses were huge, and the most important thing was the loss of the court's food and grass support, and maybe there will be a large influx of refugees in the future, which will affect King Zhao's people. The food poses a serious threat, and this king will not easily send troops until a stable food supply is obtained. After getting the news from Chang'an, Xiaoming, Pang Yukan and others discussed it. Generally speaking, they will try their best to avoid joining the war in the early stage. Instead, they should take advantage of the war to sell weapons to accumulate materials to support the development and preparation of the army. This strategy is similar to the isolationism of the United States during World War II. Now he is not stupid enough to start the so-called just war just because he has a widow. Whether he has a widow or not is the same, Because you to be king and this emperor is not a title in the edict, but the whole of the great Yu kingdom, so in order to gain the world, it is necessary to accumulate food and delay the title of king. He didn't want to be the target of public criticism at this time. Chapter 531 The Problem of the Old Minister. Food. Fiji and Luo Quan in the government office looked at each other with helpless smiles on their faces at this time. They realized that there are many constraints for Xiaoming. Just as Xiaoming said about a food problem, looking at the great Yu kingdom, this King Qi's feudal country cannot be said to be a place rich in food, and for war, there is no food is not acceptable. Sighing slightly, Fiji said to Luo Quan, "We are all too impatient. Your Highness knows the situation of the fiefs better than us. When and how to fight this battle should be decided by His Highness." What Phase Hongshu said is that now only His Royal Highness can save the great Yu kingdom from danger, and the soldiers must be thoughtful in this battle. Luo Quan said in agreement. Fiji continued, "It's just Your Highness, the crusade against King Zhao is second. Now that His Majesty's edict is here, I don't know what His Highness means. The matter of the will is put on hold for now." Xiaoming said lightly, and after a pause he said, "Although the matter of enthronement is suspended, the two of you need to show the matter of the will to the officials of the vassal state, so that the officials of the vassal state will not be punished by 10. The influence of the third prince's ascension to the throne. Fiji has served Xiao Wangsuan for so many years, and he is also a person who is like a man. He instantly understood Xiaoming's thoughts. No matter whether Xiaoming ascends the throne or not, the land he can control is only the prefectures and counties that seal the country. Officials and generals on other lands will not surrender to him. Compared with Xiaoming, the people on the royal land are more inclined to believe in the 13th. The prince is the emperor of the great Yu kingdom. After all, there are differences between the descendants and the 13 princes, no matter how young they are, and the fact that everyone in the world knows the name of the name, which makes his ascension to the throne even more absurd, and even causes him to be the first to be shot instead. Xiaoming might as well hold the edict and not announce it. In this way, he can advance and retreat freely. If the general situation in the world is in his favor, he can take the opportunity to publicize the edict to the world. If it is unfavorable, he only needs to publicize it internally. Since then, he has become famous for his external warfare. Yes, Your Highness. Fiji nodded. The matter of the edict was over. Xiaoming thought about how to arrange the ministers from Chang'an. These former kings and old ministers fled to King Zhao with Fiji and Luo Quan because they came to him. Moreover, according to the edict, he is now the emperor of the great Yu kingdom, and he has the responsibility to command these ministers to restore the majestic state of the great Yu kingdom. In addition, there is a shortage of officials in the current state, so he has no reason to keep these people out. If these ministers must learn some political knowledge in Bowen College, it will be more in line with his mind. So he said to Fiji, "Fiji, there are so many officials and generals coming to King Zhao now, what do you think should be done?" This. Fiji looked at Xiaoming carefully. Although the young man in front of him is his son-in-law, he is more aware that he is the actual emperor of the great Yu kingdom, and he is like a tiger with the emperor. In addition, this is Xiaoming's fief, so he did not dare to talk nonsense, but said, "Everything is only a matter of fact. Let Your Highness be the master." Luo Quan was straight and slick. He coughed and looked around, as if he was not interested in this question. The appearance of the two made Xiaoming helpless for a while. Compared with people like Pang Yukin, Fiji and Luo Quan had a stronger shadow of officials under the influence of feudal kingship. "Forget it, you must be tired from the long journey. Now you can go back to rest," Xiaoming said with a frown. Fiji and Luo Quan nodded and went to the Weijia restaurant under the guidance of King Zhao officials. After the two left, Pang Yukin, Niu Ben and other King Zhao officials returned to the government office. Pang Yukin said, "His Royal Highness, there are a total of 8,532 people who came to King Zhao to take refuge this time. The lower official has placed them in a private house in King Zhao to temporarily live. What to do next is still up to Your Highness to clarify." The situation was special this time, and Pang Yukin did not dare to make up his mind at will. Xiaoming said, "Currently there are only 8,000 people. It is estimated that more officials will take refuge in King Zhao in the next time, and their clansmen will also arrive in King Zhao." Xiaogun thinks so too, so he's also worried. Pang Yukin is one big and too big. Unlike Pang Yukin, Niu Ben was very happy. He said directly, "His Royal Highness, how many generals are there in King Zhao this time? The officialdom is also short of people, but we can't blindly put these officials and generals into the officialdom and the army because of the lack of people. King Zhao is different from Chang'an. If I take office, I'm afraid there will be trouble." Pang Yukin saw this very clearly. Xiaoming nodded. Peng Xiaofu is right, the elites for this king are not just the number of officials, but this time the mother and concubine brought the father's edict. This king cannot leave them alone, otherwise this who is willing to defect to this king widow? Pang Yukin and Niu Ben asked at the same time. Zan Xingcheng, Lu Fei and other generals also raised their ears. Xiaoming nodded. The father and the concubine made a will before the mother and concubine fled, and let this king continue the rule. Now this edict is in the mother's hands. Just because the father is trapped in the Bishu Pavilion, there is no additional edict on top of this edict. Big print, so many His Royal Highnesses are now emperors. Lu Fei suddenly said loudly, dancing with joy. Pang Yukin, Niu Ben, Zan Xingcheng and others all showed ecstasy after being shocked. Now that Xiaoming has inherited the great power, they are no longer the ministers of the vassal state, but the powerful ministers of the great Yu Kingdom. Luo Xin said unwillingly, so now we should call your majesty. It's too early to shout like this. Xiaoming waved his hand and said, now the great Yu Kingdom is in crisis. If the great Yu Kingdom is not unified for a day, this king cannot be said to be the emperor of the great Yu Kingdom. Everyone became fanatical because of the edict, but Xiaoming's words calmed them down again. Pang Yukin said, Your Highness said very much. Now that the great Yu Kingdom is falling apart, and His Highness calling the emperor now will be detrimental to King Zhao, it is better to wait for the world to settle down. If I will ascend to the throne again, and this edict does not have the emperor's seal, I am afraid that other vassal kings will not admit it, even if they are afraid that they will not recognize His Highness as their monarch. These vassal kings have long been looking forward to the chaos in the world. Your Highness, from the perspective of the future, it is more secure to conquer the country. Niu Ben said. Lu Fei and a group of generals echoed after hearing the words. Looking at the fanatical crowd, Xiaoming said, naturally, the country of Great Yu cannot fall into the hands of the ambitious people like King Zhao, but we are not strong enough to make enemies on all sides, so from now on, we should make friends from afar and attack close by. Divide, unite vertically and horizontally, and compete in the world. Chapter 532 The Gift of Princess Pingayang. Yes, Your Highness. The voices of everyone were impassioned, and the tea on the table seemed to tremble at this time. The officials and generals in the government office were all enthusiastic, because the young man in front of him was not only the lord of the feudal kingdom, but also the future king of the great Yu Kingdom. But for the sake of this kingship, they still needed to continue to assist him. He simply told everyone his last edict, and let himself occupy the highest moral point. At this time, he said to Niu Ben, Captain Niu, the situation is urgent now. The training of the army must not be slack, and war may break out at any time. Yes, Your Highness, now the last commander has transferred the King Zhao army to Yunzhao. This Yunzhao is the gateway to the feudal state. If the king of Zhao comes to commit crimes, he must pass through Yunzhao, and the enemy who will invade in the future can be blocked from the feudal state. Niu Ben said. Xiaoming nodded, and said to Pang Yukin, Pang Xiaofu, now you immediately count the reserves of grain in various states and counties. Grain is the lifeblood of the army and must not go wrong. Then he turned to Zan Xingcheng. This time, King Zhao and the barbarians are on the same page. King Zhao said that he could not use the barbarians to sweep the great Yu Kingdom. You will go to Yaozhao tomorrow to take command. You must hold the barbarians back, and if necessary, take the offensive as the defense. Yes, Your Highness. Zan Xingcheng said loudly after explaining these things. Xiaoming let everyone disperse. Now the situation in Chang'an is still unclear, and I don't know what will happen to King Zhao and other vassal kings. However, in this situation, he can't be idle. In these 2 days, he will send Fiji and Luo Quan to Jinling City and Jizhao City respectively. He needs to get the attitude of King Wei and King Yuang to decide a strategy for them. While thinking about it, a coquettish voice suddenly sounded, Nephew, what are you thinking about? And it was Princess Pingayang who came, and Xiaoming was slightly surprised. When he was on the dock just now, he did not see Princess Pingayang disembark, thinking that Princess Pingayang was staying in Chang'an. What? Do you think your aunt was caught by King Zhao? Princess Pingayang had a smile on her face. Xiaoming smiled awkwardly, seeing that my aunt is not on the boat. My nephew really thought that my aunt was staying in Chang'an. Auntie isn't so stupid. Can King Zhao treat me in Beijing? Princess Pingayang sighed, and then she said, Hey, now that the great Yu Kingdom has been devastated, my aunt has nowhere to go. I wonder if my nephew will be able to. How about taking in your aunt? When speaking, Princess Pingayang looked at Xiaoming with a pitiful look. Li San has already told Xiaoming about the role of Princess Pingayang this time. It can be said that if Princess Pingayang had not discovered the prince's conspiracy in advance, now concubine Zhen, including all the ministers, would not be able to escape from Chang'an. So he said, "Auntie is a great contributor to the rescue of the mother and concubine this time. It's too late for my nephew to be grateful, so why wouldn't I welcome my auntie? You still have some conscience." Princess Pingayang said with her usual lazy look, "In that case, my aunt will give you another gift after all." Princess Pingayang clapped her hands, and Yang Zhen was escorted in by Amu from outside. "Nephew, do you recognize this person?" Princess Pingayang said, "Of course, isn't this Commander Yang Zhen of Lijiangmen?" This time Commander Yang betrayed his father and joined the crown prince, but this king remembers it clearly. Xiao Ming said bitterly. Yang Zhen was already desperate. In Chang'an, Princess Pingayang used his identity to escape from Chang'an City in the middle of the night, and now she gave him to King Qi as a gift. Princess Pingayang smiled and said, "Nephew, how about this gift?" "Auntie, this gift is too heavy. How should my nephew repay my aunt?" Xiao Ming said, "Princess Pingayang must be asking for something like this. This aunt is a shrewd person. Auntie doesn't have any other requirements. She just wants to have a place to stay in Kingzhou, and then she can live a peaceful life here." Princess Pingayang sighed. Xiao Ming understood. He said to Princess Pingayang, "The nephew of the house that my aunt asked for last time has been prepared. If my aunt doesn't dislike it, I can move in tonight." Princess Pingayang only fled to Kingzhou today. She was sleepy and tired at this time. She heard a strong smile on her face. She said, "Since this is the case, aunt will disturb you. So many officials fled to Kingzhou. You must have a headache." Fan Xiaoming really needed time to sort out the current situation now, and he didn't hold back and said, "Aunt, please." After nodding, Princess Pingayang and Yu Yangmu headed to their house under the guidance of the guards. At this time, Xiaoming sent someone to call Li San over Yang Zhen. "Princess Pingayang has arrived?" Li San was a little surprised. "That's right, she just left, and she left Yang Zhen for this king." Xiaoming said, "This Princess Pingayang does have some skills, and this time, it seems that Princess Pingayang is going to live in Kingzhou. In this case, he would have to send a secret guard to keep an eye on her, lest she make any trouble in Kingzhou." Li Sam said with emotion, "His Royal Highness Princess is indeed a very shrewd person. She sent Yang Zhen to Kingzhou, which is equivalent to giving Lijiangmen to Her Royal Highness. After all, only Yang Zhen knows how to communicate with the members of Lijiangmen. Yang Zhen has a lot of secrets in his hands." This is exactly what Xiaoming thought. Lijiangmen is all over the Great Yu Kingdom, and it has been developing secretly since the founding of the Great Ancestor. Although Xiaoming is very confident in his secret guard, he has to admit that the coverage is not as good as Lijiangmen. King's Gate. Hearing the conversation between Li San and Xiaoming, Yang Zhen hurriedly said, "Your Highness spares your life, Your Highness spares your life. As long as Your Highness spares the lower official is willing to hand over the Lijiangmen to His Royal Highness HMPH. Whether you can keep your dog's life depends on whether you can spit out the secrets of Lijiangmen and Diuguo." Xiaoming said, and then he said to Li San, "Yang Zhen will hand over the secret." "Here's to you," Li San said excitedly. "Yes, Your Highness." Yang Zhen is also grateful. "Thank you for not killing, Your Highness, for not killing." With a wave of his hand, Xiaoming asked Li San to take Yang Zhen away as if he were chasing flies. He could spare Yang Zhen not to die, but he did not say that if he was released, life imprisonment was still okay. After dealing with these complicated matters, Xiaoming then went to the palace. Concubine Zhen and others were still waiting for him in the palace. Besides, there were some princes and princesses who came with concubine Zhen this time, so I had to appease them. After all, he is now the most prestigious person in this big family under the protection of Zhao Long and Zhao Hu. Xiaoming arrived at Prince Qi's mansion. At this time, Luluo and Aster were waiting in front of the door. Seeing Xiaoming, Ziwen said, "His Royal Highness, the Empress, the Princes are all waiting for Your Highness in the main hall." Xiaoming nodded, and he went straight to the main hall. In the main hall, concubine Zhen was sitting under the throne. The prince and princess were surrounded by concubine Zhen. Fei Yuer was also accompanying concubine Zhen, talking about something. Seeing Xiaoming, Princess Xiang Cheng was the first to run to him, crying, shouting, "Seventh brother! If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 533. Seventh brother, there were bursts of crying in the main hall, and the voice of Princess Xiang Chang suddenly detonated the fearful hearts of these princes and princesses these days. Xiang Chang cried all the way to Xiaoming, grabbed his arm and held on tight. The other princes and princesses also came to his side, looking as if they were bullied and came to find their brother to get back to the place. It's alright, when you arrive in Qingzhou, the seventh brother will not let you be bullied. Xiaoming comforted. These princes and princesses who fled to Qingzhou are usually not paid much attention in the palace like concubine Zhen. The mothers and concubines of these princes and princesses had no background, and those with backgrounds were taken away. Concubine Zhen also stood up at this time. It seemed that she had been crying on the way back, and she said to Xiaoming, Minger, now the great Yu kingdom is in disaster, now you brothers and sisters can only count on you to take care of them. Although they are half-brothers with you, they still have royal blood in their bones. As the saying goes, everyone gathers firewood and the flame is high, and you always need some trusted people to assist you when you are alone. Xiaoming nodded. Concubine Zhen said this to him, it is better to tell these princes and princesses, the purpose is to make them feel at ease. Yes, concubine, the sons will follow the father's last wish to take care of the younger brothers and sisters. Xiaoming said. Hearing this, these princes and princesses and concubines showed a look of peace of mind. At this moment, the only thing that everyone who came to Qingzhou was worried about was their future destiny. With Xiaoming's assurance, they felt a little more at ease. Concubine Zhen showed a smile at this time, and then she took out a golden case edict from her sleeve and said to Xiaoming, Minger, this is the edict left by your father, you can take it. After taking the edict, Xiaoming opened his eyes and saw that it was indeed a will that made him the crown prince. This Xiao Wangxun finally woke up before he died. Without this edict, he might not be able to convince so many old ministers to him, and he would be justifiable to ascend the throne in the future. After accepting the edict, he said, Mother concubine, the matter of King Zhao's rebellion will be handed over to Urchin to deal with it. From now on, you can live peacefully in Qingzhou, and Urchin will ask the government to prepare a concubine for the mother and concubine's house. It's hard work for you. Concubine Zhen said. Because of Xiao Wangxun's death, she was still a little out of spirit. Xiaoming sighed. He knew that it was useless to comfort concubine Zhen. Now seemingly realizing something, concubine Zhen continued, Minger, there is such a big mess in the world today, you will be very busy next time, and government affairs are important, you don't have to worry about your mother and concubine, but go to handle government affairs. Here is you, my son is with me, and you can leave these chores to her. From concubine Zhen's point of view, Fei Yu'er was already a real queen, so Fei Yu'er would naturally handle the affairs of the harem. Xiaoming understood. He said to Fei Yu'er, Princess, I'll leave it to you here. Fei Yu'er nodded. Yes, your highness. After appeasing the princes and princesses for a while, Xiaoming left the main hall with a will. As concubine Zhen said, he can't waste time on these trivial matters. After all, if Qingzhou can't keep it, he can only take everyone to jump into the sea. Outside the door, Xiaoming instructed Lulu and Ziwen to assist Fei Yu'er in handling these harem chores, and he took the edict to the government office and handed the edict to Pang Yukin. Yes, this is the emperor's handwriting. When Xiaoming was talking about the will, he was always worried. Now that he saw the will, a stone in his heart fell to the ground. For the time being, the matter of this edict can only be passed between the officials of Fengguo, and there is no need for others to know. Xiaoming said to Pang Yukin, Yes, your highness. Pang Yukin's face flushed with excitement after confirming the matter of the will. After a pause, he said to Xiaoming, His Royal Highness returned to the palace, presumably thinking of how to arrange these officials. That's right, when I returned to the palace, the king thought of a way. After 2 days, the king would call these officials and show them the edict. At that time, the king would propose to let them study at Bowen College. If they have successfully passed the exam, they will stay in the officialdom, but if they can't pass the exam, they can only take off their official robes. How about it? Pang Yukin said, This is a good method, and it can also accumulate officials, so that every time your highness captures a place, you can quickly establish a government office there and bring this place under his highness's jurisdiction. Well, this is exactly what this king thinks. Xiaoming said. In fact, for him, the training of these officials was for the purpose of colonization, because he found that it was impossible to complete the Industrial Revolution without the accumulation of wealth overseas. Both resources and manpower will become the constraints of the Industrial Revolution, and what worries him most is the current situation in the Great Yu Kingdom. If a large-scale war occurs, the population reduction is inevitable. Thinking of this, he said to Pang Yukin, Is Liang Dai back? No, I guess it will take 2 days. Pang Yukan said, Liang Daohe has been selling slaves at sea these days. Xiao Ming said, after he comes back, you ask him to see this king. There is a big business that needs to be done by him. Pang Yukan was stunned for a moment. He understood that what Liang Daohe and Xiao Ming were talking about could only be about human trafficking. Just as he thought, Xiao Ming was preparing to let Liang Daohe sell people from Diu to King Zhao. Since he watched these people die in the war, it would be better to start the businessman to sell people to King Zhao frantically at this time, and Ryukyu also needed a lot of people. Population expansion during the war, human life is as cheap as a dog. His decision was cruel, but it was also the greatest kindness. Chang'an City, now King Zhao has completely controlled it. In Chang'an Hall, King Zhao is sitting on the iron-blooded throne of the Emperor of the Great Yu Kingdom, and under His Highness the officials of Chang'an City at this time. These civil servants and generals all bowed their heads, trembling in the eyes of King Zhao. Zhao Yuanlian stood in front of the officials, and he said to King Zhao on the throne, Father, now that Chang'an City has settled down, is there going to be the enthronement ceremony of the 13th prince and the funeral of the first emperor? King Zhao touched his chin. And he was a little unhappy when he looked at these officials. Fiji, Luo Quan, Du Heng and other important officials were all gone, and the rest were some irrelevant grass. If it weren't for the use of keeping these people, he simply wanted to kill them all. So he said, What do you think? An official of the Ministry of Rights said flatteringly, Your Highness, a country cannot live without a ruler for a day. The minister thought that the state funeral of the first emperor could be abbreviated, but the ceremony for the enthronement of the 13th prince must be solemn. Chapter 534. My minister agrees. The minister also agrees. After the officials of the Ministry of Rights, a group of ministers agreed. Now that King Zhao's soldiers and horses occupied the entire city of Chang'an, and the prince murdered the king again, he was put in prison again. Now he can only watch for King Zhao's horses. After all, no one wants to lose their heads. King Zhao on the throne smiled. These ministers were very aware of current affairs. He didn't care about Xiao Wangxuan's funeral. He could just bury him in the emperor's tomb according to the rules. He didn't even want to spend any extra money on this matter. The 13th prince's ascension to the throne is just a formality. Now that the seal of the Great Yu Kingdom is in his hands, he has already mastered the supreme power. While the hall was full of flattery, an official suddenly walked into the middle and scolded the courtiers, a group of cowardly, who recognized thieves as their father's disciples. The spirit of the late emperor has not yet rested, but you are disregarding propriety, integrity and honor to welcome such rogue thieves. As soon as these words came out, all the civil and military officials of the whole dynasty said angrily, Nonsense, what do you know as a little speaker, bold, you are disrespectful to King Zhao. Shut up, how can you be presumptuous in the courtroom? King Zhao's smile gradually solidified at this moment. He looked at the official standing at the end and asked, Who are you? Where are you? The young man who spoke out against the ministers said, Someone is a 19th grade speaker, surnamed Sun, and famous speaker. King Zhao laughed disdainfully, and he said, There are really no decent officials in the city of Chang'an, and even a small speaker can enter the hall. Sun Li sneered, The rebellious thieves dare to sit on the dragon chair. This court is just a place to hide the filth. If someone didn't scold you and other thieves in person, he wouldn't come here, you bastard. Someone will take this man down and hack him to death. Zhao Yuanlian endured his anger when Sun Li said the first sentence, but now he can't help it anymore. Sun Li raised his head to look at the sky, and he was not afraid. He said to the king of Zhao, The crown prince murdering the monarch is a great treason, but the 13th prince should also have the last emperor's edict. If not, how can you establish the 13th prince by your own words? For you. King Zhao's eyes narrowed, like a beast that devoured people. He stood up and walked from the throne to Sun Li. Just rely on this sharp sword in this king's hand. King Zhao's face suddenly twisted, and a sword pierced Sun Li's chest. Rebel, you have to die sooner or later. Sun Li spat out a mouthful of blood and his eyes widened. Other officials shivered with fright, while some officials slumped on the ground. This Sun Li actually ran into His Royal Highness King Zhao? Damn it, yes, damn it. The officials applauded tremblingly. King Zhao's face was icy cold, and then he suddenly burst into laughter. He raised the sword in his hand and pointed at the ministers in the court hall, one by one. As long as the ministers pointed to were immediately turned pale with fright. Seeing this, King Zhao became more and more happier, and couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, you kings don't have to worry, the main thing is that you can help this king wholeheartedly, and this king will return to keep you safe. Yes, your highness. The loyal minister immediately shouted loudly. King Zhao nodded, and said, at this time, in this case, we will make an alliance with blood. If you dare to betray this king, you will end up like this. Bagwan looked at Sun Li, who was lying on the ground, and became more and more afraid. After a pause, King Zhao said, Yuanlian, go and get a bowl. Today, everyone will drink the blood of Sun Li with this king. Yes, father. After all, Zhao Yuanlian sent someone to get the porcelain bowl. After a while, the guards came with a porcelain bowl. After Sun Li's blood was filled, the guards gave the bowl to the ministers. Then some of the other guards poured wine into each official's bowl while holding the wine jar. After seeing that every minister had everything in his hands, King Zhao took the wine mixed with blood and drank it, then slammed the bowl to the ground. Bagwan, look at me, I look at you, no one dared to drink at this time yet. Zhao Wang let out an angry hum. At this time, under the deterrence of King Zhao, the ministers gritted their teeth and drank the wine with their eyes closed. At this time, King Zhao was slightly satisfied, and he said, tomorrow, the first emperor will be buried in the imperial mausoleum, and the day after tomorrow, the 13th prince will be enthroned. Yes, your highness. The ministers responded with a wave of his hand. King Zhao ordered Bagwan to leave. After the civil and military officials left, Zhao Yuanlian and Wang Zai walked to King Zhao's side. Father, this move is really high. I see who will dare to oppose us in Chang'an in the future. Zhao Yuanlian said. Wang Zai also said, that's not it. All the little 9th grade speakers dare to insult his highness like this. It's just against him. This kind of clerk is the most suitable for killing chickens and warning monkeys. You don't need to take it seriously. King Zhao sneered, and then he asked, Yuanlian, have all the food, grass, and weapons in the Chang'an government's treasury been cleared? Father, it's clear. The treasury contains 1 million taels of gold, 12 million taels of silver, and 7 million taels of grain. Zhao Yuanlian listed the various materials in the treasury one by one. King Zhao nodded with satisfaction. He said, with this treasury as the cornerstone, this king, He Zhou, cannot rule the world. It's just a pity that half of these materials have to be given to the barbarians. It's really a pity. Zhao Yuanlian said, if you knew that Chang'an city could be captured so easily, why did you borrow troops from the barbarians in the first place? No, with the 50,000 iron cavalry of the barbarians, we have the advantage of chasing the deer in the world, and every time we go to a city, we can get a lot of money from the city total. This business is still worthwhile. Zhao Wang said. When Zhao Yuanlian heard the words, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes. He remembered Xiao Ming's humiliation to him, so he said, Father is right, there are a lot of cities outside Chang'an, especially this land of King Zhao. If you take it now, we will not worry about the casting of this musket and artillery. You mean to attack King Zhao? King Zhao frowned. Yes, father. Seeing King Zhao's displeased expression, Wang Zai thought that King Zhao must have other ideas, so he said to Zhao Yuanlian, His Royal Highness, don't be impatient, this King Qi is not a simple person, and the situation in the world is changing rapidly. If we rashly going to war with the King of Qi may only damage the soldiers and generals, and the strength will be greatly reduced. On the contrary, it will let other vassal kings sit and reap the benefits. King Zhao's brows stretched a little. This was what he thought. All the arquebuses and artillery in the world came from King Zhao. In addition, the barbarians were defeated twice by Xiao Ming. At this time, he was not willing to directly conflict with Xiao Ming. In his opinion, now not only can he not turn against Xiao Ming, but he has to appease Xiao Ming, so that he has time to control the royal family and the land in his own hands. After clearing up the other vassal kings, he turned around and annihilated Xiao Ming with the barbarians with an absolute superiority of force. Chapter 535. Father, did your son say something wrong? Zhao Yuanlian looked at his father uneasily. He had always been very afraid of his father. After pondering for a while, King Zhao said slowly, Yuanlian, this is not the time to deal with Xiao Ming. Wang Zai sees this clearly. Father, don't annihilate Xiao Ming in one fell swoop at this time. I'm afraid that Xiao Ming will take the opportunity to grow up. My son and Xiao Ming have come into contact with him. This person is very treacherous and must be guarded against. Then what if other vassal kings took the opportunity to attack Chang'an when Xiao Ming was at war? King Zhao's eyes were sharp. Zhao Yuanlian suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Back then, Bishan's 100,000 iron cavalry was beaten by Xiao Ming, and they were defeated. If other vassal kings take the opportunity to attack Chang'an and the hinterland of Zhao state, they will be lost. My son understands. Now the first thing to do is to appease the other vassal kings. Zhao Yuanlian said, well, that's right. You go to arrange Xiao Wangxuan's state funeral and the enthronement of the 13th prince. After the new emperor ascends the throne, the attitude of the other vassal kings will be clear, and it will not be too late to prepare at that time. Zhao Wangshan said slowly. Yes, Father. Zhao Yuanlian bowed and retreated. Wang Zai turned around and walked out, but was stopped by King Zhao at this time, and he asked, "How is Wenrong now?" "Going back to His Highness. Niang Niang still won't eat or drink. If you go on like this, Niang Niang will not be able to hold on anymore." Wang Zai said. King Zhao sighed slightly. "I really suffered for her father's legacy, and this king is really guilty. His Royal Highness, this world cannot be soft-hearted." "Your Highness is right." Wang Zai cautiously. King Zhao nodded and asked, "This king asked you to send a message to other vassal kings, and they will respond." "His Royal Highness, no vassal king has responded so far. It is estimated that they will not come to Chang'an to attend the funeral of the previous emperor and the enthronement of the new emperor." "Does this king really want to clean up these vassal kings one by one?" Zhao Wang's voice was mixed with anger. Wang Zai sighed and stopped talking. Although they have entered Chang'an, they still have a long way to go to gain the world. With a cold snort, King Zhao waved his hand, signaling Wang Zai to leave. 3 days later, Xiao Wangxuan's state funeral was held in Chang'an City. Along Suzaku Avenue, Xiao Wangxuan's coffin was carried to the imperial mausoleum outside Chang'an City, and the 13th prince, who was only 6 months old the next day, ascended the throne and worshipped King Zhao as the superintendent of the country. General, in charge of state affairs. When the news from Chang'an came out, the world was in an uproar. But only a few days later, the king of Chu announced to the world, scolding the king of Zhao for being a chaotic thief, and immediately assisted the 3 princes in linen to become the emperor and established himself in King Zhao. News from all over the Great Yu Kingdom came into the Qiwangfu one by one. In these days, Xiao Ming was thinking about the situation of the Great Yu Kingdom in addition to arranging the old ministers and dignitaries from Chang'an. When King Zhao staged a farce of enthronement in Chang'an, Fiji and Luo Quan sent envoys to Jinling City and Jizhao City successively. King Zhao's conspiracy was exposed by the 2 of them after the king of Chu assisted the 3rd prince to establish himself. Fiji and Luo Quan also successively returned to King Zhao from the fiefs of King Wei and King Yuan. His Royal Highness, King Wei's attitude is ambiguous, and it seems that he is unwilling to form an alliance with His Royal Highness to deal with the current crisis. Fiji's face is full of anxiety. Luo Quan came back from Fiji 2 days earlier, and he said to Fiji, "My trip to Jizhao this time was quite rewarding." King Yuan was very indignant at King Zhao's rebellion, and he meant that he would form an alliance with His Royal Highness to deal with King Zhao's army. "Hey, it's a pity that you paid so much attention to King Wei back then. I didn't expect King Wei to have a rebellious mind long ago. This time he doesn't want to form an alliance with His Royal Highness. At this time, it is clear that he has the mind to compete for the world." Fiji slapped the table hard. Xiao Ming was not surprised at this result. He said, "Phase Hongshu does not need to sigh. It is not necessarily a bad thing for this king. This alliance only needs to be agreed by King Yuan. After all, King Yuan is a feudal kingdom. As long as King Yuan is present, he can block the attack of King Zhao and the barbarians from the west, and as for King Wei, this King Zhengchao has no excuse to beat him." Pang Yukan said, "Wei land is rich and has a large population. If His Royal Highness can annex Wei land, his strength will be greatly increased." Niu Ben said, "If your Highness wants to take Weidi, you must take Pengzhao first. This Pengzhao is at the traffic point. If you go south, you can attack Jiangnan. If you go west, you can enter the hinterland of the Central Plains. Moreover, there are many mountains around Pengzhao, which is easy to defend. Hard to attack is a battleground for soldiers." Fiji heard the words and sighed. Now King Zhao assists the 13 princes to ascend to the throne, and he has the posture of relying on the emperor to command the princes, while the king of Chu is standing on his own in linen. It is said that he has sent troops to attack the states and counties that once belonged to the royal family. He was also unwilling to be alone with the king of Huainan, and took the opportunity to annex a large number of the royal homeland. From this point of view, the situation in this world was irreversible. Now even Xiao Wangxuan's resurrection cannot stop the ambitions of the vassal kings. It was just that he was still worried, so he said, "His Royal Highness, this minister thinks that the big trouble in the world is King Zhao. After all, King Zhao's use of troops is to bring wolves into the house, and the barbarians are His Highness, and they can't wait to overthrow King Zhao immediately. The main thing is to guard against King Zhao." Pang Yukan said at this time, "But King Zhao doesn't seem to want to start a war with His Highness now. The so-called Emperor's order came from Chang'an 2 days ago, which is a reward to His Highness. So? Fiji looked surprised. Xiaoming gave the imperial decree to Fiji at this time, and he said, King Zhao is in the company of poisonous snakes, and sooner or later he will suffer from it. As for this imperial decree, we can just look at it, and we can't fully believe it. After all, the plan can't keep up with the changes. Everyone nodded. After a pause, Xiaoming said, King Zhao has done his best. But the vassal kings in this world are not fools. Since the world is in chaos, they can only rely on their own abilities. So, His Highness is really ready to take Peng Zhao? Fiji asked. Xiaoming nodded. This Peng Zhao in the Great Yu Kingdom is the modern Pengcheng, that is, Xuzhou in northern Jiangsu, and the land of Longsing, the great ancestor of the Han Dynasty, Liu Bang. This time, his decision to use troops was not on a whim. It was to guard against the attack of the barbarians and the king of Zhao that he prepared to annex Peng Zhao. After all, Shandong and Henan have always been the hardest hit areas for food shortages in history. If you don't find a stable food for your self-origin, which would severely limit his expedition capabilities. Moreover, Peng Zhao and its subordinate states and counties have a population of more than 500,000, which will provide him with a lot of manpower. The most important thing is that is the territory of the King of Wei closest to his fief. The secret guard is of course the priority to infiltrate, and the folk drama in King Zhao is also. Peng Zhao is quite influential. It can be said that the people here yearn for King Zhao. The only problem that needs to be solved is the local big family. Chapter 536 Digging a Pit for a Fiji. P.S. One more chapter. A sound of kin and serpent curled around, and entered the main hall with a touch of melancholy. Everyone who was discussing government affairs was quiet at this time. After listening carefully for a while with his eyes closed, Fiji said, Your Highness, the sound of the violin must belong to the Empress. It is indeed difficult for people to calm down after this catastrophe. Yes, but fortunately, the father and emperor have been buried in the ground and buried in the emperor's mausoleum. This news makes the mother and concubine feel at ease. Xiaoming said when it comes to the past, both Fiji and Luo Quan are a little concerned. Upon seeing this, Xiaoming said, Phase Hongshu, you came back at the right time. Now the officials from Chang'an and their families are all set up properly, but these officials can't be idle all the time, so this king is going to let them go to Bowen College. Learn government affairs knowledge to apply King Zhao's government affairs system. Fiji is also worried about this matter these days. As soon as he came back, many officials came to inquire about the news. At this time, he could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. He said, Your Highness, the government system of King Zhao is very different from the old system of Dai Kingdom. In the same way, will His Highness continue to use this government system? Exactly, in my opinion. The official system of the Great Yu Kingdom is out of date, and the officials are too ignorant. If you can't understand the current changes in the world, you might as well go home and hold your child. Xiaoming's tone was decisive. Now that the world has entered the era of great voyages, the backward system and ideology of the Great Yu Kingdom are seriously lacking in competitiveness. He does not want to make his fiefdom go backwards again because of the arrival of these officials. As he thought so, he was going to throw these officials to Bowen College to study and let them understand the current jungle world. And now that Xiao Wangsun is dead, the chaos of the Great Yu Kingdom has turned into a pot of porridge. This has both negative and positive sides for him. For example, he is now completely free from the shackles of imperial power, and he can boldly develop astronomy among the people and break the ignorant and backward thinking in the country. At the same time, he can also boldly open up more knowledge in Bowen College. After all, everything is now in his hands, so there is no need to worry about Chang'an's reaction. Fiji glanced at Pang Yukin. This little official of the year has now become the first assistant of the cabinet of Feng Guo. At this time, Pang Yukin laughed very treacherously. It seems that Xiaoming's treatment of officials made him very relieved. He was a lot in the court bullied by these officials. Things have changed, and now his own status is also very embarrassing. According to the official position of the Great Yu Kingdom, his status is higher than that of Peng Yukin, and according to the official position of King Zhao, it seems that the first assistant is the highest position. This is a necessary skill in the officialdom and the mud. Fiji is very aware of the current situation, so he decided to stick to the mud, so as not to say the wrong thing. His Royal Highness must do this because of His Highness's reason. Delusional Xiaoming rolled his eyes, and he knew that Fiji would say that. Compared with Peng Yukin's knife mouth, Fiji was obviously more cunning. However, he also had a way to deal with it, so he said, Phase Hongshu, since the old official system of the Great Yu Kingdom is out of date, This king must arrange a position for you. This cabinet is still 8 people short of Jiu Fu. If Phase Hongshu does not, if you dislike it, how about being one of the 9 assistants? His Royal Highness, the old minister He Dahineng is the minister of this cabinet. Doesn't this make the officials of King's Hao unhappy? Fiji said so much, but he was relieved in his heart. During this time, he had been cold all the time. What he was most worried about was to go home for retirement from now on. Unexpectedly, Xiao Ming led him into the cabinet with a single word. Although the title is not as good as the first assistant, he knows that the first assistant in the cabinet is only equivalent to an organizer, and there is not much difference in power. Secondly, Xiao Ming's arrangement may also have the suspicion of balancing Pang Yukin's rights. Having been in a high position for so many years, he is very clear that the most taboo thing for the king is the dominance of one party in the court, because this will severely limit the king's rights and even plant the seeds of rebellion. According to his understanding, because of the eradication of the wealthy family and the lack of officials, Pang Yukin recommended a large number of officials to enter the King's Hao officialdom, and now these officials have vaguely formed a small group headed by Pang Yukin. Although Pang Yukin is upright, this is definitely a hidden danger to Xiao Ming. Because of this, he guessed that Xiao Ming intentionally differentiated to make the officialdom more complicated. The book of Fees Huang has been filtered. The 4th and 3rd princes of the Fei family are all over the world. Besides, they have never formed a party for personal gain, and you are the father-in-law of this king, so the position of minister in the cabinet is not worth it. Xiao Ming said with a smile. Pang Yukin also said, Phase Hongshu has a great reputation. If Phase Hongshu can't hold this position, who else can? This. Fiji hesitated for a moment, and he said, His Royal Highness loves him, but the old minister can only be disrespectful. Ha ha ha. Xiao Ming laughed loudly. In that case, the matter of the Chang'an official going to Bowen College to study is left to Phase Hongshu forward. Fiji was stunned for a moment, with a bitter look on his face, and before he knew it, he fell into Xiao Ming's trap. This official from Chang'an has always been a headache for everyone. Even Pang Yukin is sometimes inconvenient to deal with. After all, the conflict between official positions is very embarrassing. Now that he has circled around, this hot matter still falls into his hands. Pang Yukin refrained from laughing. These days, they all saw Fiji's thoughts. After all, this design forced Fiji to bite the bullet, and Fiji's entry into the cabinet was also an encouragement to other officials. And with Fiji in the cabinet, they can also go to Bowen College to study with peace of mind. After talking about Fiji, Xiao Ming looked at Luo Quan, who was chatting with Niu Ben. Niu Ben and Luo Quan were both famous generals of the Great Yu Kingdom. Now there is Niu Ben and now Luo Quan. 2 famous generals are now in his army, and this time along with the Luo Quan came the generals of the Firearms Battalion, which made up for the shortage of generals in the army. And it was imperative to expand the military and prepare for war according to the current situation. When he won Peng's Hao this time, he said that he must not recruit some soldiers from Peng's Hao to supplement the military. Since war was unavoidable, he had to fight to support it. It was because of this that he made King Wei the first person to start the operation. After all, King Yuang's fief was in short supply of food after the drought, and it was very poor. Chicken ribs. Moreover, in exchange for weapons, King Yuang has been exporting various minerals to King's Hao. General Luo, for the past few days, you haven't mentioned your service in the army. Is there any negligence from this king? Xiao Ming asked at this time. Hearing the words, Luo Quan bowed and said, His Royal Highness is very considerate to the old minister. Why do you say that? Just because the old minister can no longer keep up with His Royal Highness's army, it is better to let Luo Xin and Luo Hong show their skills. The old minister is here. King's Hao, let's go back to the countryside. Chapter 537. The Age of Steam is coming. The general has been on the battlefield for decades, so why should you belittle yourself? Xiao Ming did not expect Luo Quan to decline his proposal at this time. His Royal Highness, the old minister is not self-deprecating. Since the last battle in Jizhao, the old minister has been thinking about this matter. King's Hao's muskets and artillery make the old minister feel that the war is no longer what it used to be. Relatively speaking, Luo Hongao, it's easier to accept a musketeer than the old minister. Luo Quan said with a sigh. Seeing Luo Quan's resolute expression, Xiao Ming nodded and said, In this case, this king will not keep the old general. Thank you, Your Highness. Luo Quan seemed to be relieved. Fiji's eyes flickered. This army is no better than the officialdom. Luo Quan made this decision carefully, and he discussed with him when he came. Even if he agreed to Xiao Ming's request, The soldiers in the army would probably not be able to help him rise. The most important thing is that if he enters the army, the firearms battalion from Chang'an or Jinwu Wei who defected to King Zhao in the future will look at him, which will undoubtedly cause factions in the army. Officials can argue with each other, but the army must be consistent. Taking this into account, he decided not to take control of the military, and with Nilogban's qualifications enough to suppress these soldiers from Chang'an, integrating the army is not a problem. The officials and generals were initially resolved, and then everyone talked about the issue of Peng Zhao for a while. This time Fiji sent an envoy to Jinling City. Since King Wei has the heart to fight for hegemony, he doesn't need to be polite. Moreover, Fiji also hinted that Xiaoming, the king of Wei, had inherited the great power, but King Wei still ignored it. This is simply a betrayal of the royal family. It was decided to annex Peng Zhao, and everyone dispersed, but before Nilogban left, Xiaoming left a problem, and the army was responsible for attacking Peng Zhao. Now the Yao Zhao army guards Shanhaiguan and naturally cannot move, while part of the King Zhao army is in Yunzhao to guard against the attack of King Zhao and the barbarians, and the other part is in Ryukyu Island. However, the Deng Zhao army had to guard against possible attacks from Korea and Japan. After thinking about it, he could only mobilize the Kang Zhao army, Yi Zhao army, and Lei Zhao army to attack Peng Zhao, but because these three armies were not like other states at the border, the combined army of each state is no more than 15,000 people, and there is almost no equipment. However, during this time, the armies of these three states have been training in accordance with the formation of the musket team, because the army has training guns, so as long as they are equipped, they can quickly become an army. Thinking of this, he had a big headache, and it was a problem with equipment. Now he lacked most of the muskets and artillery at the same time. A sense of crisis was born in his heart. Although King Zhao's industry exceeded that of Dai by a lot, the shortage of population was fatal. Crowd tactics are enough to destroy everything he's built. While he was worrying about the equipment, suddenly the servants of the palace came to report, saying that it was Lin Wentao who asked to see him. Hearing this, Xiaoming was overjoyed. The person he most wanted to see now was Lin Wentao. It was up to him whether the production speed of this equipment could go up. Let him in, Xiaoming said excitedly. After the servants left, Lin Wentao arrived at the main hall with a look of excitement. His Royal Highness, Xiaiguan and Zhang Liu have solved the problem of one steam engine driving multiple machines. Using the crankshaft and connecting rods, the steam engine in the machine tool workshop can now drive a row of 12 drilling machines to work, and now we have installed them. There are 5 steam engines, and now there are a total of 72 drilling machines using steam power. Lin Wentao said excitedly. After a pause, Lin Wentao continued, during this time, the steam engine workshop produced a total of 16 steam engines. According to His Highness's request, 6 were given to the machine tool workshop, and the remaining 12 were given to the textile workshop. The remaining 6 will be handed over to the musket workshop of the military workshop for rifling of rifled guns. Not bad, very good. For Xiaoming, this was undoubtedly a timely reign, because the fiefs were underpopulated, and what he could really rely on was the steam power brought by the steam engine. Now Lin Wentao has successfully overcome the problem of one steam engine driving multiple machines, which will save him a lot of labor. And once Lin Wentao mastered the problem of one steam engine driving multiple machines, it means that the technical problems of steam locomotives have been initially solved. Lin Wentao was very excited. He said, "Your Highness, although the steam engine is working well now, there is still a shortcoming that the air leakage of the cylinder plug is still a little serious. It is said that the cylinder plug made of rubber is soft and can ensure air tightness, but the official does not know what this rubber is. This rubber Lutong understands, but this kind of thing is not available in Dao country. Only the southern ocean coast will have this kind of thing. But now that this king has traded with the Dutch, this king will find a way to find some rubber." "Yes, Your Highness," Lin Wentao said happily. Xiaoming was a little helpless. This is the importance of colonization. If there was no colonization, potatoes, sweet potatoes, peppers, and tomatoes would not have been introduced to Europe and Asia. Without colonization, things like rubber would not have been found to be used in industry. It just made him annoyed that he was preparing to sail to the sea, but he didn't expect such a mess to happen in the country. For him, this civil unrest was no less than the 30 Years' War and the Great Northern War in Europe. After talking, Xiaoming said to Lin Wentao, "By the way, this steam engine is not only a single-cylinder steam engine, but also a 2-cylinder steam engine, and even a 4-cylinder steam engine. With a little improvement, this steam engine will have enough power to drive more machines. You have to do some in-depth research on this point, And you should also test the steam locomotives in the books. After all, the principles will not be much worse. Xiaoming throwing out so many tasks made Lin Wentao a little stunned. He said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness, there are too many tasks. I am afraid that the subordinate is not able to do it. I implore the subordinate to let the subordinate choose some students in Bowen College to set up the experiment of the steam engine workshop." "How is the room?" "Of course you can." Xiaoming laughed. Lin Wentao was enlightened. He finally understood that it was not enough to fight alone, and it took a lot of people to do research. Lin Wentao nodded. "That's the case. I will go to Bowen College to select students." After saying that, Lin Wentao bowed and walked out. Watching Lin Wentao leave, Xiaoming felt relieved for a while. I don't know what the effect of this steam engine was. Among them, he is most concerned about the rifling of the gun workshop. If the steam engine made it easy to cut rifling, then he could equip the army with rifled guns in batches. Thinking of this, he couldn't wait to go to the military workshop. During this time, he was very busy because of the chaos in Chang'an, but he neglected the production of military industry. Now, in order to attack Peng Zhao, he has to go to remind him in person. Chapter 538, Expanding the Military Workshop. Hum, the sound of the steam engine pulling the hook knife back and forth to cut metal continued to sound. Song Changping and the craftsmen in the musket workshop were a little shocked when they looked at the steam-spitting steel monster in front of them. Although the craftsmen of the steam engine workshop used a steam engine to drive the craftsmen to cut the rifling 2 days ago, this unprecedented machine still made them feel a bit shocked. Time cannot be accepted psychologically. Supervisor Song Fang, now that we have this steam engine, doesn't this cutting rifling have nothing to do with us? Song Changping watched the hook knives retract back and forth in the barrel, while a craftsman was responsible for rotating the barrel so that the hook knives could draw perfect rifling in the barrel. How can there be nothing to do with us? Even if the steam engine replaces us to pull the hook knife, we still have to look at the machine carefully for the rifling. Song Changping said, I mean, this steam engine is so powerful, won't many craftsmen have nothing to do in the future? The craftsman worried. This is nonsense. In fact, because of the use of steam engines in the lathe workshop, a large number of craftsmen in the lathe workshop were idle, and these craftsmen were transferred to their workshop to be responsible for the production of flintlock guns. Now that the steam engine is here again, they can't help but worry. Your worries are unnecessary. There is a lack of firearms in Qingzhou. So far, we have only produced 45,000 flintlock guns. Most of Fenguo's troops have not popularized muskets and artillery. Today, Dayu country is like this. The situation will definitely require more firearms in the future. Song Changping said, he understands why these craftsmen have such thoughts now. The salaries of craftsmen in the military workshop are very high. Even though most of the craftsmen are still slaves, they do not want to lose their immediate work. Song Changping is right. Even if the steam engine replaces some craftsmen, the output of the military workshop is currently insufficient. What you should worry about now is how to meet the equipment procurement problem of the army. Xiaoming's voice suddenly came from outside. Hearing this voice, Song Changping and the craftsmen turned their heads and saw Xiaoming walking towards them while shaking his fan. Your Highness. Song Changping led a group of craftsmen to salute Xiaoming. Xiaoming asked everyone to avoid the ceremony, but he walked towards the steam engine hook knife combination that was cutting the rifling. At this time, the steam engine was pulling the hook knife back and forth through the connecting rod to make a linear motion. Every time the hook knife goes in and out of the barrel, it will pull out a shallow mark. The craftsman in charge of it supervises the cutting of the rifling. There are now more than 30 barrels in the steam engine, and 6 hook knives of the steam engine allow the cutting of the rifling. Efficiency is greatly improved. How is it? How many rifled barrels can be pulled out in a day now? Xiaoming asked. Song Changping replied, compared with a previous one in January, the steam engine can pull out 1 in a day. Lin Wentao now allows 30 hook knives in the military workshop to cut rifling through the steam engine. If there is no waste, 900 per month. The routes are still fine. Well, this number is enough. At present, the production of smoothbore flintlock guns is still the main thing, understand? Xiaoming nodded with satisfaction. Whether it is human or mechanically produced, there is a scrap rate. He saw some scrapped products. The barrels of the gun were thrown to one side. Song Changping said that there are 900 barrels without scraps. If the scraps are removed, it is estimated that there are only 700 to 800 rifled barrels in a month. Xiaoming is very satisfied with this figure. Now he still adopts the equipment plan mainly based on muskets and supplemented by rifled guns. After all, There is not much time for him to wait for the replacement of equipment. Now he needs more. The number is to deal with the current crisis. As for the large-scale equipment, rifled guns can only be replaced step by step in the war. Yes, Your Highness. Song Changping said after a pause. Xiao Ming said again, by the way, this time this king has dispatched a group of craftsmen to you. Now your musket workshop can be expanded into a workshop, and 2 workshops can produce flintlock guns at the same time. A group of craftsmen are here again? Song Changping was a little excited, and the other craftsmen were relieved, which proved that there was a real shortage of muskets in Fen China. Liang Dahe has not returned, but the first batch of slaves has been delivered. According to Liang Dahe's subordinates, Liang Dahe will arrive with the last batch of slaves after tossing around at sea for so long. Liang Dahe brought back 8,000 slaves this time. Before the merchants and Kings Hao could divide this batch of slaves, 5,000 of them were assigned to the military workshop. Although these people don't know anything yet, it doesn't take long to bring the old to the new. After all, the assembly of flintlock guns is not an advanced technology. 5,000 people. This time this king gave you priority to the gun workshop. You have to keep up with the production of this flintlock gun. Now Fengguo may face war at any time. If this king loses, everything in the country will be sealed. It will all vanish. Xiao Ming said with a frown. Song Changping's expression became serious. He suddenly felt that his body was very courageous. He patted his chest, and said, Your Highness, even if you don't eat or drink, the lower official will definitely complete this batch of equipment on time and according to the quantity. Well, I believe you. By the way, some of the flintlock guns that will be produced from now on will be distributed to the armies of Kang Zhao, Yi Zhao, and Lei Zhao. Song Changping replied yes. After explaining the production of this firearm, Xiao Ming suddenly asked, how many rifles do you have? Go back to His Highness, there are still 60 rifled guns. Song Changping said 60? Xiao Ming's eyes narrowed. The range and accuracy of this rifled rifle are not comparable to that of a musket, and it can be used as a marksman in the army. After all, even in the cold weapon army, a group of archers will be selected to be responsible for some special tasks, and he needs rifled guns to complete some special operations tasks. Bring this batch of rifled guns to this king. This king will use it for himself. Xiao Ming showed a smile hearing this. Song Changping asked the craftsman to take out 3 long wooden boxes, which contained rifled guns. This time, Xiao Ming came here in person to see the production of the rifled gun, talk about the slave, and let Song Changping increase the production. After some inspections, he no longer disturbed the production of the workshop, and let the guards who followed him carry the flintlock gun back. Since King Zhao entered Chang'an, in addition to Zhao Long and Zhao Hu, Xiao Ming also had a team of 100 elite soldiers to protect him. In troubled times, the enemy may use all means, especially assassination. This method is low cost and great harvest. He didn't want to die before he was successful, so he followed Pang Yukin's intention and added 100 guards to protect his own safety. Chapter 539. King's Hao Camp. After leaving the military workshop, Xiao Ming went directly to the King's Hao Camp with a rifled gun. Compared with a lively training scene in the past, the King's Hao Camp was a bit deserted at this time. After part of the King's Hao army was stationed in Ryukyu and the other King's Hao army went to Yunzhao, only 5,000 soldiers were stationed in the King's Hao Camp today to guard King's Hao security. However, in addition to the current 5,000 King's Hao soldiers, there are still remnants of soldiers who escaped from Chang'an in the current King's Hao Camp. These soldiers total 3,000 and were placed in the west side of the King's Hao campus. When he arrived at the King's Hao camp, the soldiers of the King's Hao army were carrying out the reloading training in the past. Luo Hong and other generals from Chang'an were enviously looking at the King's Hao soldiers in neat military uniforms and carrying bayonets and flintlock guns. Compared with the soldiers of the King's Hao army, the firearms battalion from Chang'an seemed out of place. Your Highness, the arrival of Xiao Ming quickly alerted the generals who were watching the training. Luo Hong took the generals of the firearms battalion and bowed to Xiao Ming. No gift. Xiao Ming helped Luo Hong up. Luo Quan rejected him that day, and then Fiji told him the reason, which made Xiao Ming feel that Luo Quan was a man of righteousness at this time. Niu Ben brought Lu Fei, Luo Xin, Qi Guanggai and other generals over as well. After saluting, Niu Ben said, Your Highness, we are showing them the musket array. When he came in, Xiao Ming could see what they were doing. He said to Luo Hong, what do you think of our King's Hao army? The training of the King's Hao army is probably beyond the reach of the firearms battalion. Besides, the muskets equipped by the King's Hao army seem to be different from the firearms battalion. Luo Hong shook his head. Speaking of the flintlock gun, Niu Ben and Xiao Ming were immediately a little embarrassed. At that time, he sold the matchlock gun to the imperial court and other vassal kings. The secret of the flintlock gun has been kept secret. Now Luo Hong is stationed in the King's Hao camp and finally sees the tricks. However, what he mentioned was also very euphemistic, but he must have been caressing in his heart, knowing that Xiao Ming had kept it at that time. Actually, the difference between a flintlock gun and a matchlock gun is not very big, but one is a flintlock gun, and the other is a matchlock ignition. There is almost no difference in range and accuracy. The only difference is the stability of the firing. There is another difference. That's the bayonet on here. Up to now, he didn't need to hide the flintlock gun anymore, so he told everything about the flintlock gun as he spoke. Niu Ben brought a flintlock gun, and then brought an arquebus from the firearms battalion, and showed Luo Hong the firing and bayonet parts of the two, holding a flintlock gun in one hand and an arquebus in the other. Luo Hong called 2 soldiers to experiment with the arquebus and the flintlock gun respectively. For one thing, there really isn't much difference after such an experiment. He did not think that Xiao Ming deceived Xiao Wangsun, because it didn't make much difference to him. After all, whether it was an arquebus or a flintlock gun, as long as the enemy rushed in front of him with bullets, he had to fight melee. Relatively speaking, he felt that the bayonet was very important, but even so, he looked at the flintlock gun eagerly. The meaning is self-evident, even if the gap is small, but who doesn't want a little better? His Royal Highness, the last commander, led all the soldiers of the firearms battalion to be loyal to His Highness. Compared with Luo Xin's slick tongue, Luo Hong was calm and timid, but no matter how honest people were, Luo Hong directly expressed his stance to Xiao Ming in front of the King's Hao army generals. Xiao Ming looked at Luo Hong and a group of generals of the firearms battalion who were kneeling on one knee and said, "Everyone, please, since you are willing to follow this king will naturally not treat him differently." Luo Hong didn't get up, but said, "The last general heard that His Highness is going to conquer Peng Zhao to punish King Wei for the crime of rebellion and treason. If His Highness believes in our firearms camp, we are willing to go there for His Highness." This. Xiao Ming's heart was slightly turbulent. Luo Quan said this because he was worried that Xiao Ming was not at ease with these generals, so he wanted to use his military exploits to prove his loyalty. As for Xiao Ming, he was really tempted. Kang Zhao, Lei Zhao, and Ye Zhao had only 15,000 troops, and now the firearms battalion has 20,000 troops, which reduces the gap between the army and the Peng Zhao defenders. After all, Peng Zhao is the northern gateway to the Wei land. King Wei has a large number of people, and the number of troops in his hands is more than 4 times that of him, and this does not include the private soldiers of the local rich and powerful families. A dead end is impossible. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Ming said, "In this case, this king will not shirk. After all, since you are the king's army, you should be treated equally. Now this king is using troops, and this battle of Peng Zhao will count as one of you share." "Thank you, Your Highness." Luo Hong was overjoyed when he heard the words, and the other generals of the firearms battalion were also happy. Xiao Ming's words meant that they accepted them. Shaking his head, Xiao Ming asked Luo Hong and others to get up. Since Luo Hong mentioned the conquest of Peng Zhao, Xiao Ming took advantage of the situation and asked, "Captain Niu, have all the armies of the 3 states notified? Go back to Your Highness. The last general has issued a military order to dispatch the Kang Zhao army and the Peng Zhao army to Ye Zhao to join. With this food and grass, it will take about 12 hours to prepare the baggage before leaving for Peng Zhao, but this equipment?" Niu Ben said, not talking anymore. Xiao Ming knew that Niu Ben would mention this. He said, "This king has just returned from the military workshop. Song Changping will give priority to providing weapons to the soldiers of the 3 states. At least half of the soldiers can be satisfied within a month. And there is no war without muskets. Is it? How did we fight the barbarians in the Battle of Kang Zhao?" Niu Ben was stunned for a moment. At this moment, he realized that the whole army was blindly admiring muskets, and they had forgotten their original ability. The sword was transported to Ye Zhao. Xiao Ming nodded lightly. In the age of muskets, it was very dangerous to forget the ability to fight with cold weapons. In fact, the current mainstream in the world is still muskets, but on the battlefield, bayonets are often used after several rounds of salvos. Charge melee, for example. The most prestigious British red shirts in the modern era still fight in a 50-meter volley and then charge. Because of this, Xiao Ming is not so arrogant that he thinks that he can take on the Great Yu Kingdom with a flintlock gun. After all, strictly speaking, he is still in the stage of alternating hot and cold weapons, and he needs to face every war. Be careful not to be sloppy in the slightest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540 Hidden Danger. The clarion call for the training of King Zhao army soldiers continues. After inquiring about the deployment of the army, Xiao Ming pointed to the wooden box behind him and said to Niu Ben, "Captain Niu, these are the 60 rifles that this king brought from Song Changping. You have selected 60 rifles that are excellent in shooting of soldiers and give them daily training rifle gun?" Niu Ben was slightly surprised. He tried it out when the first rifle appeared, but the secret guard took the gun first. He has always been greedy for these rifles, and he couldn't help but get excited. "Your Highness, you can always look forward to these rifled guns at the end." Luo Hong and others fell into a state of confusion again. The difference between this flintlock gun and an arquebus was just figured out, and now there is a rifled gun instructing the guards to bring the wooden box over. Xiao Ming handed over the rifled gun to Niu Ben and said, "In this case, the Governor Niu has to train 60 excellent musketeers for the king." Niu Ben and the other generals of the King Zhao army couldn't wait to open the box and took out a rifled gun. While Niu Ben looked at it, he assured His Royal Highness, "It is better to go back together with Luo Quan. If you can't do this trivial matter, retirement, you all go back to old age, and this army is no longer in charge." Xiao Ming was a little helpless. He valued Niu Ben and Luo Quan not because of their achievements in Zengjin, but because they had a set of management of the army, and with enough prestige, they were able to take care of the army of various states. Well organized. As for the direct battle, Lu Fei, Qi Guanggai, Luo Hong and other young generals were relied on. The rifled gun was sent, and Xiao Ming didn't stay too much. This Niu Ben pulled the King Zhao army out in order to correct the mistakes in the training of the firearms battalion. Now that the expedition to Peng Zhao has been promoted, and the firearms battalion still needs to undergo strict training, he will not interfere. After leaving the King Zhao camp, Xiao Ming looked in the direction of Jinling City, which was one of the most prosperous cities in the Great Yu Kingdom. Thinking of King Wei, the owner of Jinling City, he had no idea what this ulterior motive was planning. Jinling City, the palace of Wei Wang, Oi Wang, who was holding a cup of hot tea and was about to take a sip, suddenly sneezed twice. In the past 2 days, Wei Wang suffered from a cold and had a runny nose, which was all sprayed into the tea. After retching in disgust, King Wei threw the tea aside. At this time, the servants of the palace offered fresh tea again. Since Fiji left, this king has been feeling uncomfortable. "Everyone, tell me, did this king do something wrong this time?" Wei Wang wiped his nose and said. Shimi Wenai, the head of the palace of Wei Wang, who was sitting at the head of King Wei, said, "Your Highness is too worried. This Fiji is just a lost dog now. Now it runs away and barks twice. Why should your Highness worry?" Sitting at the lower left of King Wei is Xiaoqi. He said to King Wei, "Uncle Wang, this Fiji is not as simple as a lost dog. He was appointed by Xiao Ming, King of Qi, and the matter of this alliance is really, uncle. It's a bit reckless. In the opinion of my nephew, the uncle should agree to King Qi, so that the 3 kings stand side by side, even if King Zhao comes with barbarian cavalry." It can't help us. Wang Wei frowned when he heard the words, and he said, "Although I said so, the meaning of the words in Fiji is that Xiao Ming has the last emperor's edict in his hand, which clearly tells this king that Xiao Ming is the one who will inherit the great line. If this king agrees, Fiji, doesn't this make this king call Xiao Ming his vassal?" Mi Wenai took the opportunity to say, "Your Highness is right. Now King Zhao says that the 13th prince is the emperor, and the king of Chu directly made the 3rd prince the emperor. Maybe the next king of Yan will make the 4th prince the emperor, and now it's here again. As Xiao Ming, it's hard to tell the truth from the fake. The only thing that can be sure is that the world is in chaos now, as the so-called chaotic times bring out heroes. How can your Highness be servile to that Xiao Ming's child after so many years of planning?" King Wei nodded when he heard the words. This Mi Wenai was talking about his heart. Ever since King Ning was killed, he has been living in fear. Isn't all these years of hard work so that one day he will not live in the shadow of Xiao Wangxuan? Now that Xiao Wangxuan is finally dead, he no longer has to worry about being afraid, and at the same time, his ambitions are constantly expanding, and he also wants to taste the feeling of being above 10,000 people. Xiao Qi wanted to persuade King Wei again, but he finally gave up after seeing the fanaticism in King Wei's eyes. These people, King Wei treated him like his own, and now King Wei wants to do anything in 5 or 6 years, and he should help him. So he said, since Uncle Wang has ambitions in the world, now it is time to prepare for the war, so it is safe to do so. Although my nephew and Xiaoming have only met once, this person is definitely not an easy person to deal with. If Uncle Wang refuses to form an alliance with him, he said to prepare for war. You mean King Qi will attack Wei land? King Wei frowned. Xiaoqi said lightly, Uncle, don't forget how Xiaoming was treated in the battle of Kangzhou and Jizhou in those years. Xiaoming only used these points in exchange for some benefits, but he must have always hated the uncle. After all, the uncle was in those days. But the Kangzhou army that was almost killed was wiped out. King Wei's face suddenly turned gloomy. Whether it was the battle of Kangzhou or the battle of Jizhou, he always thought it would be better to die as a Taoist than to die as a fellow Taoist. He always wanted to take the opportunity to destroy this threat from the north. In the past, he was still worried about Xiao Wangxuan, but now that the world is in chaos, he can only rely on his ability to speak. But he will not be worried at all if King Qi has this idea. He will definitely attack Peng Zhao. Mi Wenai said suddenly. King Wei also nodded. He looked at Mi Wenai. Mi Changshi, this Peng Zhao is your hometown, and the Mi family is the largest local clan. The matter of King Qi slaughtering the nobles of 6 states is still in sight. If Peng Zhao is destroyed, this king is very worried about the local aristocrats. Mi Wenai's face turned pale, and he said, Tell your highness, when King Qi slaughtered the nobles in 6 states, some noble children fled to Peng Zhao for refuge. Speaking of which, this massacre of nobles was nothing but a conspiracy of King Qi, and absolutely it was a rebellion of the wealthy clan. And the lower officials thought that this matter should be announced to the world, so that the wealthy clans in the world would never think of King Qi, and as a result, the wealthy clans from all over the world would definitely regard King Qi as a beast of a flood, and if King Qi attacked, they would definitely resist. Wonderful. It's wonderful. King Wei was overjoyed when he heard the words, and he said, This king has 50,000 troops stationed in Peng Zhao. If the local clans can work together to resist, this force will be more than 50,000 on the bright side. The king is sending 10,000 cavalry to help, and Xiaoming, who is bound to kill, will not be left behind. Xiaoqi looked cold, but he said, Uncle Wang, Xiaoming's army is famous all over the world with firearms. If Uncle Wang wants to defeat Xiaoming, he has to work hard on this matter. Chapter 541, Incorporating Li Jingmen. Firearm. The king of Wei spat out these 2 words softly. Thinking of this, he felt a little gloomy. He said, This king asked the craftsman to imitate the matchlock gun, but so far there has been no progress. It's really a headache. Mi Wenai said, Don't worry, your highness. Although these muskets and artillery are powerful, they are by no means invincible. Otherwise, why would Xiaoming guard the Shanhai Pass and not come out? It can be seen that even with firearms, Xiaoming is still afraid of the barbarian cavalry. What's more, there are few people in Qi and many people in Wei. Qi is poor and Wei is rich. As long as Peng Zhao can be defended, King Qi's army will have to retreat within a few months. Xiaoqi frowned. What Mi Wenai said seemed to make sense, but the Battle of Kangzhou and the Battle of Jizhou proved the ferocity of the Kangzhou army, and although Weidi has a large population and is very wealthy, the people have always lived in peace and stability. In his life, Weidi's army had not experienced a major war in 7 or 8 years. If the 2 sides fought, the outcome was unknown. After hesitating for a while, he said, Uncle Wang, my nephew thought that we should continue to send envoys in Dutch, Japanese, and even to the south to find the method of forging artillery and muskets. Now other vassal kings have seen the benefits of firearms and have seen the power of firearms. This matter must not be taken lightly. What Mi Changshi and my nephew said makes sense. In that case, Mi Changshi is in charge of Peng Zhao's defense, and my nephew is in charge of the firearm forging method. Mi Wenai and Xiaoqi looked at each other and replied, Yes, your highness. King Wei nodded with satisfaction. He was thinking of going to the city with the 2 of them to play, when suddenly a guard hurried outside the main hall. His Royal Highness, Chu Diziliner is reporting that it is said that the army of the King of Chu has taken Quanzhou and other royal homelands. The guard said Quanzhou. King Wei was taken aback. It took so long for King Wei's feudal kingdom to double. If this continues, the southern country will be occupied by the King of Chu. It's not surprising. The King of Chu has worked so hard to manage the south over the years, and he has already bought off many officials from the surrounding prefectures and counties. Now that the world is falling apart, these officials have immediately defected to the King of Chu. Xiao Qi analyzed it. King Wei felt a little sour in his heart. This king of Chu is really tricky and occupies a good place. Unfortunately, King Yan and King Qi around this king are not good friends. It has to be said that the current king of Chu is the best at the right time and place. Although the two of them do not like the king of Chu, they have to admit this. Mu Wenyi sighed and said, the most important thing is that King Chu's navy roams the river. This is a natural moat, and no one can do anything about him. The king of Wei snorted when he heard the words, and he said, this matter is very disappointing. Let's not mention it. The king of Chu is rich, and this king is not inferior to him. It is not certain who belongs to this world. Mu Wenyi nodded, and he suddenly remembered something and said, Your Highness, I remember something. This King Qi's battleship has to stop in Tuangzhou every time it goes south to supply supplies. It will be difficult for their warships to go south. King Wei's eyes lit up. He stroked his beard lightly, and said proudly, Mi Changshi really reminded this king. Since that's the case, we can't say anything about Tuangzhou. If he, Xiaoming, dares to make an idea of Pengzhou, don't blame this king for forbidding his warships to dock for supplies. It's more than that, Your Highness. I don't think we can still coerce King Qi to send us some artillery and muskets. Mi Wenyi said. The more King Wei thought about it, the more he felt that Mi Wenyi's words made sense. He said, well, since that's the case, this king will send someone to Qingzhou to talk about this. After saying that, the king of Wei laughed heartily. Qingzhou. After Xiaoming left the Qingzhou camp, he went directly to the government office. As soon as his front foot arrived, Li San followed. Is there any important information? Xiaoming couldn't help asking Li San in a hurry. Now Xiaoming is smeared about things outside Qingzhou, and he can only rely on the information collected by Li San and Wang Zhuan to analyze the current situation. Li San said with a smile, His Royal Highness, Yang Zhen honestly explained Li Jingmin's eyeliner and secret codes, but the lower official found a lot of Li Jingmin people in Qingzhou. It was explained so quickly. It seems that this Yang Zhen is just a person who is greedy for life and fear of death. Xiaoming said disdainfully. His Royal Highness's words are not false. As soon as the lower official mentioned these 10 tortures, he was scared to pee on his pants before the torture instruments were put on. Li Sam seemed to be very proud. Talk about the point. Xiaoming glared at him. The boy's slick tongue still remained unchanged. Li Sanchen smiled and said, these people from Li Jingmin were all arrested by the lower official, and they learned that His Royal Highness holds a widow, and under Yang Zhen's persuasion, these people are willing to obey the dispatch of the lower official, and the lower official people have been sent to recruit people from other places in Li Jingmin. After a pause, Li San continued, His Royal Highness, this Li Jingmin is really pervasive, all over the Great Yu Kingdom. Yang Zhen explained that there are detailed works of Li Jingmin beside every vassal king. In this way, I can keep track of the situation of other vassal states at any time. Besides, Yang Zhen didn't provide any valuable information. Xiaoming was most concerned about this. Li San said, yes, Yang Zhen said that the barbarians agreed to King Zhao to send troops on the condition that they get half of the spoils, and King Liang also accepted the barbarians as ministers in exchange for the barbarians support King Liang. Another man who recognizes a thief as his father. Xiaoming said angrily. Now he understands more and more why the Ming dynasty will perish, with internal and external troubles, and so many traitors leading the way, can it not perish? But thinking about the current situation, he felt that the situation at this time was even more difficult. Yang Zhen also said that the barbarians promised to ignore the conflict between the two. If there is a conflict between the king of Zhao and the king of Liang, the barbarian troops will not participate, but if they used troops against His Highness, the barbarians promised to support them fully. Xiaoming frowned. Originally he wanted to play proxy wars, but he didn't expect that the barbarians would start playing in advance. He knew very well the thoughts of the barbarians. He undoubtedly wanted to use King Zhao and King Liang to consume his troops. Waiting for an opportunity behind him. However, Your Highness, King Zhao seems to be more interested in King Shu, while King Liang is quite critical of King Zhao occupying Chang'an. Li San said again. King Zhao doesn't seem to be stupid. The land of Shu is known as the country of Xianfu, and it is the main grain production area of the Great Yu Kingdom. If he wins the land of Shu, he will not worry about the food. Back then, King Qin Yingzhang also took Wanzhong first and then Bashu, and then only unified the 6 kingdoms. It seems that the king of Zhao has a posture of learning from the first emperor. Li San said, no, this Zhao Wang has always called himself the little Qin emperor with a sneer. Xiaoming put aside the topic and asked, if King Zhao has this idea, It will buy time for this king to conquer Wei. Tell me about the situation in Pengzhou. Chapter 542 Preparations before the war. Li San recalled the information about Pengzhou in his mind. Xiao Ming wanted to conquer Pengzhou. As a secret guard who collected intelligence, he naturally had to investigate Pengzhou first. Since he served as the commander of the secret guard, he has gradually come into contact with the eyeliners of other vassal kings, but in general, he is very confident in the secret guard he has established. After all, they have many classic books to study. In the past 2 years, they have established a mature internal organization by learning and practice, and have also cultivated some excellent secret guards. His Royal Highness, there are many mountains around Pengzhou, and the city of Pengzhou is basically in the basin terrain that His Royal Highness often said. In the view of Xiaoguan, because of the mountains, it is difficult for this large-scale army to assemble and deploy outside the city, and it is difficult to pose a threat to the city. Moreover, outside the city of Pengzhou, there is the Bian River, and the two rivers of Sishu flow into the south after they meet. Now these two rivers have become the natural mode of Pengzhou. Generally speaking, Pengzhou is surrounded by mountains on both sides and water in the north. Xiao Ming frowned upon hearing this, but what Li San said was that Suzhou's geographical location in his technology library matched historically. The two rivers, Bianshu and Sishu, have been invaded by the Yellow River for a long time. Because of the limitation of the mountains around Suzhou, the river course has always been very stable. The Bianshu comes from the west, and the Sishu flows from Xiaoming's fief into the vicinity of Pengzhou City. Now these two rivers are both a mode and a waterway for Pengzhou City. The canal of the Great Yu Kingdom passing through Pengzhou City is through the Bian and Sishu rivers. Now the merchant ships of the Qingzhou Chamber of Commerce have to pass through this place. To put it simply, along the Sishu River, you can go north to Qilu, directly to Yaozhou, and along the Bian River, you can go south to Jingling, Yangzhou, and even enter the Yangtze River to reach the fief of the King of Chu. From the west, you can reach Guansong areas such as Chang'an and Luoyang. It is said to be a hub connecting north, south, east and west. It is for this reason that Xiao Ming's first reaction after King Wei refused to form an alliance was to take Pengzhou City. We'll always face the risk of King Wei stabbing the chrysanthemum, and if he won this place, it would be equivalent to tearing open the gate of Wei Di. From then on, Wei Di was able to gallop and let him gallop, easily turning from defense to offense. His Royal Highness, in addition to the terrain that is easy to defend and difficult to attack, this Pengzhou City is also extremely sturdy. The people of Pengzhou are brave and good at fighting, and they are not lost to the people of Qi, and there are 50,000 elites stationed in Pengzhou City. These soldiers are all local people in Pengzhou. The generals in the army also come to the local wealthy clans in Pengzhou, and with the private soldiers of these clans, the strength of the troops in Pengzhou City is not a small number. Li Sanyu said that the more worried this Pengzhou City is easy to defend and difficult to attack, and the army in the city is not a weak team. Pengzhou has been a battleground for the military since ancient times. This king also understands that the soldiers are strong. Because of this, it is even more necessary for this king to take Pengzhou. Otherwise, if the king of Zhao attacks with the barbarians, this king will definitely be attacked by the enemy. Xiao Ming looked firm. Li San nodded solemnly. After Xiao Ming said this, he felt that Pengzhou City was really important. After a pause, he continued, His Royal Highness, the lower official also learned about the situation of the local rich and powerful family. The largest family in Pengzhou City is the Mi family, and now the eldest son of the Mi family, Mi Wenai, is the long history of the Wei Wangfu. Besides, the second largest family is the Lu family. Xiao Ming nodded as he listened. Li San had a detailed grasp of the news about Pengzhou City, and now he knows it very well. You have compiled all of this information into a book. In addition, this king needs a detailed topographic map of Pengzhou City. Xiao Ming pondered for a while. As the saying goes, knowing the enemy and knowing yourself will win every battle, and he must have detailed information before the war, but this is only part of the work. He said to Li San, How do the local nobles view this king? Just as His Highness thought, the nobles of Pengzhou are very hostile to His Highness, and they often say disrespectful words. This is also what the lower officials are worried about. If His Highness attacks Pengzhou City, I am afraid that these local nobles will resist desperately. Xiao Ming gave a wry smile. Back then, he was a little ruthless in order to eradicate the wealthy clan in Qingzhou, but now his behavior has become a rebellious act in the eyes of these wealthy clans. But even so, He still did not regret his decision at that time. The Great Yu Kingdom has been numb for too long under the rule of these famous families. If these cancers cannot be completely eradicated, they will continue to suck the blood of the Great Yu Kingdom. Thinking of this, he made a decision in his heart, so he said to Li San, "This is the case with a wealthy family, what about the common people?" The people praised His Highness very much. Li San said with a smile, he was also very proud of this matter. Then can the secret guards incite the people to rebel? Xiao Ming asked. When Li San came, he understood that Xiao Ming's main point of looking for him was this, and he said, "Go back to your highness, this matter is very difficult. The people have lived under the oppression of the wealthy family for a long time, or the local people have become the vassals of the wealthy family. When they are not sure that His Royal Highness can break through Pengzhou City, they dare not act rashly. Well, since that's the case, try again when this king attacks Pengzhou City." Xiao Ming said, Li San must have bought some people since he said so. He didn't expect these people to be able to decide the outcome of the war, but it would be good if it could distract the army of Pengzhou City with the detailed information. Xiao Ming asked Li San to go back. 3 days later, Li San returned again. At this time, he handed him a complete map of Pengzhou City's terrain and army deployment, and he asked the craftsman of the equipment division to make a sand table overnight. The next day, he summoned the generals who participated in the siege to observe the map of Pengzhou City and formulate a detailed attack plan. He didn't want to make any mistakes in such an important war. Just like Xiao Ming, when Niu Ben and the others looked at the map, they frowned. His Royal Highness, this Pengzhou City seems to be a hard bone. We can only attack Pengzhou City from the front, and the land in front of Pengzhou City is narrow, which is very unsuitable for the soldiers' formation. Niu Ben analyzed. Luo Xin said directly, Pengzhou City has neither artillery nor a musket team. King Wei seems to regard the purchased equipment as a treasure. In this case, we will attack Shanhaiguan by firing lime bullets from mortars. Explosives destroy the city. Luo Xin is right, go directly to the artillery. Lu Fei's temperament has not changed, he is direct and straightforward. Niu Ben snorted, and he said, it's simple, there is a wide moat outside Pengzhou City, but you talk about how to bury explosives. Luo Xin hadn't looked at the sand table carefully just now, but only then saw it, and he giggled. Suddenly Niu Ben turned to Xiao Ming. At this moment, His Highness, the last general has a solution, please mobilize 2 to 3 warships to assist the battle. Chapter 543, King Wei attacks. Battleship. Niu Ben's suggestion made him. Xiao Ming lightly nodded. Although the Bian River is not wide, it is more than enough for the 3 battleships of Yuan to pass through it, about the size of an ordinary merchant ship. This is a solution, but these warships are currently cruising at sea, and this king needs to summon them. Xiao Ming pondered. The Pengzhou City on the sand table was built near the water. If you want to enter Pengzhou City, you can only pass the wooden bridge in front of the door, but at that time, the army of Pengzhou City will inevitably demolish the bridge. At this time, the 3 warships were cruising in the river, transporting soldiers to the opposite side, and providing artillery attacks. It's not a problem. It will take some time for the 3-state army to gather and train. Niu Ben said happily, he has been fighting the idea of warships, because the farther south you go, the more cities will be built next to the water. The Marines provided protection, and they couldn't even cross the river at all. While everyone was watching the sand table, a guard walked in from outside the door and said to Xiao Ming, Your Highness, the messenger of King Wei has arrived. Lu Fei said with a smile, Your Highness, does this King Wei regret that he wants to form an alliance with His Highness again? King Wei is very ambitious, but he won't give in to His Highness so easily. Maybe he has some bad water. Niu Ben said. Xiao Ming frowned and said, This king will know when he goes. You continue to watch the sand table and formulate a battle plan, and then submit the plan to this king for review. Yes, Your Highness. Niu Ben responded. After all, Xiao Ming followed the guards to the Qi Wangfu, where a middle-aged scholar was waiting for him in the main hall of the Wangfu. Seeing Xiao Ming, the middle-aged scholar saluted and said, His Royal Highness King Qi, this lower official was appointed by King Wei, and I want to talk to His Highness about the matter of Tongzhou. Tongzhou? Xiao Ming's eyes narrowed, thinking that what should come is still here. He knew that King Wei would make a fuss about Tongzhou sitting down at the main seat. He said, Just say what King Wei thinks. The middle-aged scribe said, His Royal Highness Wei said that the world is in chaos today, and both royal clansmen should support each other, so His Royal Highness Wei is willing to continue to provide supplies for the Kingzhou battleship, but I hope His Royal Highness can use 20,000 arquebuses and 300 gates. Artillery is a rental fee. King Wei really knows how to speak like a lion. Xiao Ming snorted coldly and said, What if this king doesn't agree? Then His Royal Highness King Wei can no longer provide supplies for His Highness in Tuangzhou. I hope His Highness think twice. The middle-aged scholar said lightly, Your Highness, if the Tuangzhou port is lost, it will be difficult for this battleship to go south. The arrogant tone of the middle-aged scribe made Xiaoming angry for a while. He hated being threatened by others the most. In this case, he had to teach King Wei a lesson and let him know how high the sky is and how thick the ground is. He said, Go back and tell King Wei that if he stops supplying Tuangzhou, this king will definitely make him pay the price. Xiaoming's tone was stern, but the middle-aged scribe was taken aback. This time, the king of Wei was full of confidence. After all, Tuangzhou was in the territory of Wei. And Xiaoming had nothing to do about it. Your Highness, you have to weigh the pros and cons. The middle-aged scribe did not expect Xiaoming to be so tough, but for a while he didn't know what to do. Xiaoming stood up at this time and said to the middle-aged scribe, This king has considered it very clearly. You go back and tell the king of Wei that the Battle of Kangzhou was remembered by this king, and the Battle of Jizhou was also remembered by this king, but now he does not read the royal family. Clan affection, refusal to form an alliance. This king has done his best to him. From now on, he does not have to keep his hands on this king, and this king will not keep his hands on him. The middle-aged scribe was originally very calm, but now Xiaoming's words completely frightened him. In his opinion, Xiaoming is officially starting a war against King Wei. Xiaoguan. Xiaoguan retire. Touching a gray nose, the middle-aged scribe wiped the sweat on his forehead and walked out without turning his head. He was afraid that if he left later, he would be taken by Xiaoming to behead the sacrificial flag. After sending off King Wei's messenger, Xiaoming's eyes narrowed. Originally, he still had some illusions about King Wei, but now King Wei's face completely disappointed him, and he is not the predecessor Xiaoming, but he doesn't care about the royal bloodline. He only knows one thing. If things go on like this, the Great Yu Kingdom will really have to eat jujube pills. Therefore, when these vassal kings have not yet brought the population of the Great Yu country from 100 million to only a few million, he must take an active offensive and seize as much land as he can, especially the Wei land. A rich and crowded place. After the envoy of King Wei was driven away, Xiaoming immediately ordered Yu Yun to mobilize 3 warships from the fleet to enter Kingzhou to cooperate with the battle against Pengzhou City. At the same time, he and Niu Ben began to intensively plan an attack on Pengzhou City, and it seems to be revenge on Xiaoming. After the messenger returned to Jinling City, the king of Wei quickly cut off the supply to Tuangzhou. At the same time, the king of Wei ordered any Kingzhou merchants not to trade in Wei, otherwise they would all be killed without mercy. After the order was issued, 3 Kingzhou merchant ships that failed to evacuate were detained. His Royal Highness, King Wei is so hateful. He let our people come back and said that if he wanted to redeem the merchant ship, he would take 500,000 taels of silver. Li Keitong filled with indignation, and now business is difficult to do because of the war. Unexpectedly, King Wei suddenly made such a move at this time. The goods transported by these 3 merchant ships plus the merchant ship itself were worth more than 200,000 taels, and Li Keitong had to feel distressed. The retaliation measures taken by King Wei really caught him off guard. According to Li Keitong, some wealthy families in Wei took the opportunity to attack the merchants from Kingzhou. On the surface, it was only an expulsion, but in fact, the king of Wei and some of the big clans had long been guilty of misfortune. The detention of these 3 merchant ships already explained the problem. I have to say that this incident really made Xiaoming very upset. These merchant ships were all owned by the Kingzhou Chamber of Commerce. Although he ordered to withdraw when he fell out with King Wei, he still did not have time to withdraw. It's not that the merchants were too slow to evacuate, but that these 3 kings of Wei had premeditated and detained the 3 merchant ships before they ordered His Royal Highness. The business of the Chamber of Commerce is difficult to do now. How can this be good? Li Keitong sighed. Yu's domestic business is difficult to do, so do foreign business. Do you think that this king has worked so hard to open up the sea route for fun? This king planned in advance to deal with this situation, and now you are shifting your focus to maritime trade. Superior. Yes, Your Highness. Li Keitong said. After hesitating for a while, he said, Your Highness, where are these 3 merchant ships? He took this king's 3 merchant ships, and this king took his 3 cities. Xiaoming slapped the table fiercely. Chapter 544. P.S. 3 chapters today, make up tomorrow June 27th. The weather in Kingzhou is getting hot, but under the scorching sun, the transportation team under the Kingzhou army is still busy today. The transport team received an order from Liu Ben to transport flintlock guns and ammunition from the military workshop to Yizhao. This batch of ammunition was prepared for the attack on Pengzhou City. Following the convoy were 36 field guns. 16 of these field guns belonged to 6-pound field guns and 20 belonged to siege field guns. Under the drag of the horses, the artillerymen followed the guns to the south. Go on the Qingzhou Wharf. 3 Galen warships also set sail to the south at this time, and the war against Pengzhou City was in full swing. It's been more than a month, and it's finally time to do it. Standing on the bow of the ship, Lu Fei had a pleasant expression. He had been training all this time, and the days were boring. Now that the war was going on, he finally came to the spirit. Luo Xin didn't go with the artillery this time, and was also going to go south with a Galen ship. He said, "If you capture Pengzhou City this time, who do you think His Highness will hand over the military affairs of Pengzhou City?" What are your thoughts? Lu Fei squinted at Luo Xin, rolling his eyes. Luo Xin said, "Hey, I knew you had this idea. Don't worry, I won't fight with you. The land we will lay down in the future is huge. You can't compete with me. Your Highness has said that this time, after Pengzhou City is defeated, I will be appointed as the governor of Pengzhou. I will finally be promoted after being with His Highness for so long." Lu Fei was very emotional in the past 3 years. He has made a lot of meritorious deeds and committed a lot of crimes. Originally, he didn't think about these things, but after the Chang'an rebellion, every general of the Qingzhou army had an idea in his heart. Although Xiaoming did not claim to be the emperor now, he was already the emperor in their hearts. The only thing they lacked was the real power to unify the great Yu kingdom. Therefore, one by one, they shouted that they were going to fight. This was a great contribution to the expansion of the territory. In the future, it must be rewarded for merit and deeds. This time, he led the army to attack Pengzhou City, which made many generals in the army envious, all staring at his command with red eyes. Now when you are proud, let you beg me when you are fighting." Luo Xin raised his brows. Hearing this, Lu Fei grinned and said, "Luo Xin, we've been together for 2 years. You can't hold back this time." Just after he finished speaking, Lu Fei suddenly saw someone walking towards him from the corner of his light. He turned his face, but it was Xiaoming who boarded the boat. "Your Highness, are you going to Yizhao too?" Lu Fei and Luo Xin walked towards Xiaoming, a little excited between their words. "Yes, this king is worried that you will cause trouble on the battlefield, and is going to supervise in person," Xiaoming said seemingly unintentionally. Lu Fei heard the grievance and said, "Your Highness, you are still worried about the last commander." Xiaoming laughed at this time. He said, "This king is just joking. The governor knew, and this king said that you will have no problem leading the army alone now. This battle of Pengzhou is very important. This king came to see you specially, to cheer up the soldiers." Lu Fei breathed a sigh of relief. And he said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness, you can rest easy. You can't take the end of Pengzhou City to see you. Your head is too big. This king used it as a chamber pot, and he disliked it and had nowhere to put it, so you can keep it yourself." Xiaoming glared at Lu Fei, and these words became his catchphrase this time. Luo Hong and other soldiers from the firearms battalion flew with Lu. The 3 battleships were stuffed full by these soldiers originally. Xiaoming also wanted to go to Yizhao to supervise the war, but the information that Li San sent in the past 2 days was a bit complicated, and he needed to discuss with Fiji and others. Xiaoming boarded the battleship, which made the soldiers look excited. In the past, when they went to war, the vassal king personally came to see him off. These soldiers from Chang'an had only heard that Xiaoming was very friendly, but now they are so. After talking to Lu Fei for a few words, Xiaoming ignored him, but went to 3 battleships to greet the soldiers one after another. Xiaoming's actions made the soldiers even more fighting spirit. All soldiers, when the city of Pengzhou is broken, this king will go back and set up a celebration wine for all the soldiers. Facing the ordinary and lovely soldiers, Xiaoming said loudly, "My honor is loyalty." The soldiers of the Qingzhou army immediately shouted loudly. Luo Hong was stunned for a moment, and he also shouted, "My honor is loyalty." Looking at the high morale soldiers on the expedition, Xiaoming nodded with satisfaction. He said to Lu Fei, "Let's go." "Yes, Your Highness." Lu Fei replied. After getting off the boat, Xiaoming watched as the 3 battleships set sail from the dock and gradually disappeared at the end of the river. At this time, the figure of Fiji appeared behind Xiaoming, and he also looked at the distant battleship. He said, "Your Highness, the messenger of the King of Chu said that the King of Chu is willing to form an alliance with us and divide the country equally in the future. I wonder what Your Highness thinks." The reason why Xiaoming didn't go to Yizhou this time was because of the messenger of the king of Chu. After he and King Wei completely broke down, he didn't know whether the king of Chu got the news or the king had a plan. The messenger has arrived at that time. He was in the military workshop and Song Changping delivered the produced flintlock gun to the King's Zhao army. After learning the news, he asked Fiji to contact the messenger of the king of Chu first. What do you think about Fi's Hongshu? Xiaoming said His Royal Highness. The old minister said something that made His Highness unhappy. For the past month, the old minister has been dealing with Pang Yukin's government affairs. In the old minister's opinion, even if he has the advantages of muskets and artillery, he cannot rule the country alone. Fiji said after a pause. He continued, from the account book, it is only steel, muskets, artillery, ammunition, and gunpowder that consume a lot of money for the government, and the reason for all this is because the world is in chaos, the trade routes are cut off, and all kinds of materials in Dao can't reach King Zhao. If things go on like this, how can His Highness be able to unify the North? Your Highness, don't forget the barbarians on the grasslands, they have been watching. Your Highness, the meaning of Fiji is very clear. This time the King of Chu sent an envoy to him. He is not surprised at all. Because more than half of the artillery in the artillery trade between him and the King of Chu has not been delivered. If he turns his face on this, the King of Chu must cry to death. You mean to continue to maintain trade with the King of Chu? Xiaoming asked His Royal Highness. Those who accomplish great things are not careful. If His Highness wants to gain access to the northern country, he must cooperate with the King of Chu. In this way, whether it is food, grass, ores, there is a source, and His Highness's goods also have a place to sell, isn't it? Xiaoming nodded, and he had to say that Fiji's words fit his mind. He really needed a stable place to sell goods, otherwise King Zhao's industry would be over. Chapter 545 Signing a Covenant. A gust of river wind blows, taking away the summer heat. Xiaoming and Fiji walked up to the Hidi on both sides of the Zhaoqing River while talking. He pondered for a while, and he said, since this day, we will continue to cooperate with the King of Chu. Just as Fiji said that the current king is facing the biggest threats are the kings of Zhao, Liang, Yan and the barbarians, and it is the northern country that should be stabilized at present. Yes, Your Highness, all the founders of the country from ancient times to the present have conquered from north to south, and the King of Chu will let him relax for a while. Fiji is also a wily person. Before this incident, he also told Pang Yukin. Pang Yukin also supported his idea, because he seemed to be isolated and helpless and had many enemies now. He should seize this opportunity now. After all, for the King of Chu, all he wanted was the land south of the Yangtze River. Well, since this is the case, this king will go back and accept the matter. Xiaoming's brows stretched out. The barbarians, the Japanese kingdom, Guguria, the king of Zhao, the king of Liang, and the king of Yan, these are the main enemies that Xiaoming is currently facing. Except for the Japanese kingdom at sea, the rest of the forces are in the north, and none of these people are good. In particular, the barbarians are still a steppe empire that traverses East Asia to Central Asia. In the west, the barbarians are even at war with the Ottoman Empire, which shows the vastness of their territory. For the barbarians, the Great Yu Kingdom is only a corner of its territory, and there are more lands that the barbarians are fighting for in other places. Fighting against such a big empire is bound to be long and lasting. If Xiaoming's current land and resources are used to seal the kingdom, just consuming the barbarians will be enough to drag Xiaoming down. Therefore, for whatever reason, he must unify the north, and then he will have enough manpower and material resources to completely defeat the barbarians. Thinking all the way, Xiaoming and Fiji headed for King Zhao City. Back at the palace, Xiaoming met the messenger of the King of Chu, His Royal Highness. The envoy of the King of Chu saw Xiaoming's respectful attitude this time. In addition to the messenger of the King of Chu, Li Wei was also there. As Li Wei, who had been in charge of artillery transactions in King Zhao, he also played a lot of roles in this alliance. During this time, Li Wei had been acting as an undercover agent in Chu with Xiaoming's money, and unknowingly, he had cultivated a group of officials close to King Zhao. For King Zhao, it can be seen that in any era, the charm of money is still infinite. Please sit down. Mr. Fei Jie has already told this king what the King of Chu means. After thinking about it, this king thinks that the King of Chu has a good idea this time. The messenger sent by the King of Chu had a very high status in Chu, and it was Chai Lingfei, the son-in-law of the King of Chu. It can be seen that the King of Chu attached great importance to this alliance. When Xiaoming came in, Chai Lingfei became nervous. The difference was that King Wei was ignorant and fearless, but King Chu had seen the strength of the Dutch, and after being beaten by the Dutch in the Battle of Kaiantang, the King of Chu made up his mind. Focus on the development of firearms because of this. The King of Chu was very worried that Xiaoming would tear up the original trade agreement because of his independence, and this time he hurriedly sent him to ask for an alliance. His Royal Highness is wise. The King of Chu deeply feels that it is very difficult for His Highness to fight alone in the north, and the Emperor also feels his brotherhood. If His Highness is willing to form an alliance, the two can learn from each other's strengths and complement each other. Chai Lingfei beamed with excitement. After a pause, Chai Lingfei continued, His Royal Highness, the Emperor said that if His Highness agrees to this alliance, we are willing to continue to purchase 50,000 arquebuses. Li Weilei and His Highness also discussed the specific details of this matter. 50,000 arquebuses. Chu is no less rich than the world, such a big hand. Xiaoming smiled lightly. Now that the steam engine drilling machine has replaced a hydraulic drilling machine, the production speed of this matchlock gun has reached a new level, and the matchlock gun has a simple structure and is extremely easy to manufacture. Thinking that this matchlock gun is extremely easy to imitate, he felt that there was no need to refuse this transaction, because Li San knocked out another piece of information from Yang Zhen's mouth that made him very uncomfortable. When Xiao Wangsun was seriously ill, Wang Zai had already found the forging technology to imitate matchlock guns. Even though this forging technology was very slow to produce matchlock guns, the technology was always imitated. Rather than letting the King of Chu find a way to imitate it, he might as well sell the matchlock gun, which can make money and make the King of Chu feel that there is no need to copy it. Chai Lingfei said with a smile, His Royal Highness, King Ruang and King Weinan took the opportunity to invade the royal land, and King Zhao was eyeing the land of Shu again. For the sake of the homeland of the Great Yu Kingdom, the Emperor was forced to do so. The smile on Xiaoming's face became more and more intense. At first, Chai Lingfei was talking about the King of Chu, and then he moved out of the third prince. Now that the King Zhao of Chang'an has established an emperor, and the King of Chu in the south has established an emperor, he, the real heir to the throne, has become the person they are vying to win over. Thinking of this, Xiaoming felt more and more that it was right that he did not make his post known to the world, and it was more important to have both sides than a title. But even so, Xiaoming would not call himself a minister to the third prince. He said, since that's the case, this king will answer this matter. Chai Lingfei felt relieved for a while. This time he came to King Zhao to successfully achieve the purpose of this trip. After some polite remarks, Xiaoming called Fiji and Pang Yukin and asked them to formally sign a covenant with Chai Lingfei at the government office. After the agreement was drawn up, Xiaoming officially signed his own seal on it, and Chai Lingfei also put the seal on it. After the agreement was reached, Chai Lingfei handed over to Xiaoming and said, Your Highness, after this matter, I hope Your Highness can give more support in terms of firearms. Of course, we will not let His Highness suffer among the many vassal kings. The King of Chu felt the deepest perception of Xiaoming's strength. Because of this, he would put down his face and win over Xiaoming. Of course, the King of Chu came here at the right time. It was precisely when he saw the current predicament in King Zhao that he sent an envoy at the right time. Sure enough, just as the King of Chu had expected, the covenant was successfully achieved. Xiaoming handed the covenant to Pang Yukin for him to keep, and sighed slightly in his heart. The cruel reality really taught him how to play the strategy of distant ally and close attack. It's no wonder that the current Maozi's powerful military has to beg the rabbit's family to find money to spend. This is all forced by money. No matter how many advanced weapons are not supported by money, they are just a pile of scrap metal. When Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty expelled the Xiongnu, he also sent Zhang Jin as an envoy to attack the Xiongnu and finally won the war. Since the covenant has been signed, this king will naturally not violate the covenant, and I also hope that the King of Chu can abide by the covenant. Xiaoming smiled lightly. In this way, he basically completed the first step of the distant and close attack, the war against Wei land. There are also fewer constraints. After signing the agreement with the King of Chu, Xiaoming suddenly had a bold idea, which was the same purpose as when Zhang Jin went out. Chapter 546 Ottoman Raiders. Send messengers to the Ottomans. After the covenant was signed, Li Wei took the envoy of the King of Chu to the Wei family restaurant to rest. At this time, Xiaoming proposed another plan. His Royal Highness, where's this Osman? We don't know what he said. Why is he going to be an ambassador to Osman? Fiji and Pang Yukin looked at each other and felt that the plan was very risky, and even the messenger could not come back alive. Of course, Xiaoming understood what the two of them meant. Such a shocking plan was only tried by Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, and Zhang Jin was able to come back by too many coincidences. However, This time is not the time. The current era of great voyages is not the environment that the Han Dynasty faced at the beginning. This time Xiao Ming plans to send a mission from the sea to the Ottomans, as long as the Ottomans can cause trouble for the barbarians in Central Asia. Pressure on his side will be much smaller. As for whether it will be successful, you will never know if you don't try. Thinking of this, Xiao Ming said, "This Ottoman mission is prepared by this king, don't worry. As for where the Ottoman Empire is, this king also knows, but you have stayed at Bowen College for so long, haven't you? See the knowledge of other kingdoms, His Royal Highness." The old minister is just looking at some maps of the Great Yu Kingdom, the Japanese Kingdom, and the Goguryeo Kingdom. "I haven't seen any of these yet." Fiji seemed to take it for granted. Pang Yukin was a little embarrassed, and he didn't even look at it, because in his mind there were only two parts of the world. One is the Great Yu country, and the other is the country outside the Great Yu country. As for the history of other countries, he has no interest at all in developing it. Seeing this, Xiao Ming had a scruple in his heart. After all, in the hearts of the officials of the Great Yu Kingdom, the concept of the Kingdom of Heaven was still deeply rooted, and they didn't care to know about other countries at all. Although he is angry, Xiao Ming also understands that people of one era have the ideas of people of another era. Compared with people from Fiji and Pang Yukin, some young officials are more willing to understand the current situation in the world, so he has been planning to put it in the cabinet. Some young and promising officials form a check on conservative officials like Pang Yukin and Fiji, so that no one will help them and talk nonsense with these people in the future. Xiao Ming took care of the affairs of the mission, and the two were speechless. They were just worried, but if they could really send a mission to Ottoman, they would be very happy to see if the covenant was signed and the embassy was finalized. Fiji and Pang Yukin looked at each other, and Pang Yukin stepped forward and said, "His Royal Highness, the government of this kingdom needs to be dealt with, but should your highness also think about the matter of the continuous descendants, successful children? Isn't this the king's private business?" Xiao Ming immediately became vigilant. The two old foxes laughed strangely, and there was a sign of singing double reeds. Sure enough, after Pang Yukin said it, Fiji said bitterly, "His Royal Highness, the Emperor's family affairs are national affairs, and this continuous descendant is the most important thing. For the stability of the country, I hope your highness think twice." Pang Yukin hesitated. "His Royal Highness, it has been almost a year since the princess entered the palace. Do you need to call an imperial physician to check the pulse of your highness and the princess?" "No need." Xiao Ming really wanted to kick him when he heard it, but he didn't have any problem. The two old men were overly worried. Fiji's eyes rolled around, as if he and Pang Yukin had reached an agreement. He said, "Your highness, this matter is of great importance, and the old minister is absolutely selfless." Seeing that the two of them were endless, Xiao Ming said angrily, "Shut up, this king has his own measure in his heart after all." Xiao Ming left the government office as if he had fled, leaving only Fiji and Pang Yukin to look at each other. "Pang Changshi, do you think his highness has another woman in his heart? Why is his highness so annoyed by this matter?" Fiji was very worried. This Fei Yuir was her daughter. No matter from any point of view, he did not want his own daughter aggrieved. Pang Yukin recalled and said, "Impossible, his highness and princess are very affectionate. People often see the princess and his highness going in and out of each other, and there has never been any quarrel between the two in the palace. This is strange." What did his highness think? Fiji had a dark cloud, which seemed too abnormal to him, and many clansmen were already secretly talking about it. Seeing Fiji frowning tightly, Pang Yukin said, "I mentioned this to his highness before, and his highness ignored it, but his highness is not worried. We ministers can't help thinking of his highness. Now that Fei Jie is here, you and I mentioned this to his highness every 3 or 5 minutes, not afraid that his highness would refuse to accept it, so this is one of the top priorities." These words hit Fiji's mind. He said, with Pang Xiaofu's words, "A certain person will do it even if he wants to save his face." The two looked at each other and suddenly laughed. Here, Xiao Ming went to Bowen College after leaving the government office. The world is in chaos, and the development of Fengguo cannot be stopped. Instead, it is necessary to speed up the development of education, and because of Xiao Wangxun's death, the last shackle on his body has also been untied. From now on, he can boldly develop astronomy in the fief, popularize the current development situation of the world, and clarify the concept of nation and country, without worrying about someone criticizing him. After all, Confucianism's control over the world is always the weakest during every time of war. Everyone is trying to survive, and whoever comes to him with classics is in trouble. In fact, the Confucian family in Quifu is also in a state of panic. Therefore, in view of this, Xiao Ming officially sent astronomy books and telescopes to Bowen College, established an astronomy branch, and recruited talented people who have studied astrology in the private sector to participate in the study of astronomy at the gate of Bowen College. Students in white gown uniforms entered Xiao Ming's eyes, with Lin Wentao, Lu Tong and other students getting the title, Private Manor. This folk scholar has gradually changed from resisting to sharpening his head and has to enter the academy. One of the changes in this situation is because Xiao Ming used the last Confucian student to make trouble to cut off. There is no way for scholars to enter officialdom without orthodox education, and because of the war, scholars have no chance to participate in the imperial examination. On the contrary, some scholars seem to have seen the opportunity, and they all want to serve Xiao Ming, looking forward to Xiao Ming being able to sit on the dragon chair one day, so that they can rise to the top. Of course, these are just some official fans. In addition to this type of scholars, there are also more scholars who like craftsmanship. Under the deliberate guidance of Xiao Ming, there are also some children of folk craftsmen who have also entered the academy to participate in all kinds of scientific knowledge learning, and because of the accumulation of 2 or 3 years, Bowen College also has a group of students who have mastered all kinds of scientific knowledge. Although their level is only at the level of junior high school and high school, it is more than enough to teach new students. Therefore, during this period of time, the Bowen Academy was extremely lively, and the number of students also rose to 8,000. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547, Above the Moon. Your Highness. Walking through the Bowen Academy, the students who came and went kept salutes Xiao Ming, and Xiao Ming kept returning salutes all the way. This time, he came to Bowen College not to check the students' learning situation. As the number of students in the college increased, he no longer cared about this issue, because with the increase in the number of students, the competition among students was also increasing. If you don't make progress, you will be eliminated once you fail the semi-annual assessment, and you will lose the opportunity to study in Bowen College. This is not because Xiao Ming is cruel, but because all the students of Bowen College are free of board and lodging, and have a basic salary every month. It can be said that he is raising these students. Therefore, unlike modern colleges, he doesn't feed waste. If they can't pass the most basic assessment, they are not eligible to enjoy these benefits. After all, his assessment is only a test paper of the current level. As long as he can answer 70% of the questions correctly, he will pass the assessment. At the same time, in addition to the traditional written test, there are practical examination. For example, students from the School of Chemistry and the School of Physics should be able to complete some experiments independently, and they should be able to apply their learned hands-on ability in the assessment of the first half of the year. Bowen College eliminated more than 30 students who were ignorant, and this seriously stimulated other students. All students who entered Bowen College also took their knowledge seriously, and dared not be in the dark. Mixed in the college under the protection of the guards, Xiao Ming went directly to the school of the Astronomy Academy. These students were all summoned by Xiao Ming from the people. After passing the basic assessment and proving that they had some simple understanding of the astrological phenomena, they officially became the Bowen Academy students. The grass people are participating in Your Highness. There are only 7 people in the school, and these 7 people are of the same age, ranging from 16 to 60 years old. But he doesn't care about age. His purpose is to tear apart the veil of feudal superstition, as long as they can help him establish a basic scientific understanding among the people. No gift. Xiao Ming smiled when he came this time. It was already evening, so choosing this time to come was naturally aimless, because the middle of the month was coming soon, which is the time of the month when the moon is the roundest, the largest, and the easiest to be observed by astronomical telescopes. In order to get rid of the feudal ignorance of the people, he must first get rid of the ignorance in the hearts of these 7 people, because the 7 people's understanding of the starry sky is only from books such as divination, and they are very familiar with disaster stars, evil stars and other things. The old man at the head of the 7 people is the most articulate. This man's name is Yan Zhenggai. He used to be a fortune teller at a stall on the streets of Qingzhou. Later, he learned in the newspaper that Xiao Ming needs someone who understands astrology and volunteered to come. Hoped to be able to be a staff member in Qi Wangfu because of the idea of divine right of the monarch. Generally speaking, there are some people who are proficient in astrology beside the feudal lord or the powerful, and before the war, These people will also be asked to deduce the astrology in order to test for luck. Is His Highness leaving us so that I can wait for His Highness to and for good luck tonight? Yan Zhangai's face was full of folds with a smile. He was already 65 this year. He exclaimed that it was Jiang Taigong who met Zhou Wenwang, which made Xiaoming laugh and laugh without waiting for Xiaoming to speak. Yan Zhang raised his eyes and looked at the sky that was gradually darkening. At this time, a full moon had risen from the east. He stuck to Husu and said, "Your Highness's Life Palace Master Star is Zhuizing. The star is the Emperor Star, which shows that His Highness is the appearance of the Emperor." After the Chang'an Rebellion, Zhuizing became more and more bright and even obscured the stars, which shows that His Highness is the hero of the world, and the future is boundless. Ha. I have to say that Yan Zhangai said Xiaoming very comfortable, but Yan Zhangai definitely couldn't tell that he came from a different time and space. The purple star in Yan Zhang's mouth, also known as the North Star, is the main star of the constellation Ursa Minor, and the Big Dipper revolves around it in the 4 seasons. If the sky is compared to a funnel, then Zhuizing is the top of the funnel. This kind of Zhui star surrounded by stars is compared to Zhui's life according to the range surrounded by stars, being born at home as the head of a family, born in a country as the king of a country. Yan Zhangai is using this method to fool him. Seeing Xiaoming so happy, Yan Zhangai also laughed in agreement. In his opinion his words were right. However, while the two were laughing, one of the young men said disdainfully, "Your Highness, this Zhuizing is just a star, and it has nothing to do with fate." Just as Chen Xing and Wu Guang said, princes and generals are kind, and this dynasties claim to be a hit. There are not a few Zhui people, but those who can become the masters of the world are all talented and strategic. Wang Yanqing, what nonsense are you talking about? Yan Zhangai's face suddenly changed. You dare to slander? This is something passed down from the ancestors. Xiaoming put away his smile. He looked at the slightly fat young man and said, "This astrology theory is the study of emperors. Why do you criticize it so much? Because your Highness is looking for me not for astrology, but for astrology, and your Highness's Bowen Academy is also famous for its peculiar knowledge. If your Highness needs a celebrity, why should you look for it in the people? This world-famous view has its own proficient in astrology. The person." Wang Yanqing said slowly. Hearing this, Xiaoming nodded. Wang Yanqing was a smart person, and what he said just now also proved that he did not agree with Yan Zhangai's position as a god. Well, you're right, this king came to you not for astrology, but to let you really understand what the stars in the sky are? Xiaoming said lightly. Yan Zhangai's face changed. Like this liar, every liar knows that what he is telling is a lie, but he wants others to believe it. This Yan Zhangai has only read 2 photo books, and he doesn't believe what he said. Now Xiaoming said bluntly. He suddenly laughed. This is not true, and it is not true if he doesn't say it. Glancing at the restrained Yan Zhangai, Xiaoming looked at the rising moon again, and then Xiaoming said to the 7 people, "You come with me." Then he led the 7 people outside the school. When Zhao Long and Zhao Hu had already pointed his astronomical telescope at the moon, seeing the telescope, all 7 of them looked puzzled. At this time, Xiaoming stepped forward to adjust the telescope and said to Wang Yanqing, "Come and see what the moon looks like in your eyes." Wang Yanqing was quite generous, not restrained at all. He walked over, looked at it according to Xiaoming's method, and suddenly said, "How come this is similar to a pockmarked face? Is this the moon?" "Yes, this is the moon in the sky." Xiaoming smiled. Taking this opportunity, Xiaoming told the 7 people about the basic knowledge of the moon, the earth, and the solar system. Under Xiaoming's narration, pictures flashed in the minds of the 7 people, allowing them to experience a shocking experience. World truth. Okay, this is what this king wants to tell you. If you can accept it, you can stay. If you can't accept it, you can leave on your own. This king will not make things difficult for you. Chapter 548. Under the frosty moonlight, the 7 people watched the moon in the sky through the telescope in turn. Faced with this result, except for Wang Yanqing, the other 6 people looked extremely ugly. After some hesitation, 5 of them chose to leave, leaving only Wang Yanqing and Yan Zhangai. In the face of this result, Xiaoming can still accept it. In fact, he was more optimistic about Wang Yanqing before he came, because Wang Yanqing's brother is also in Bowen College and has been influenced by his brother, and in the past 2 days, his brother Wang Mengxiang also was selected by Lin Wentao to go to the laboratory. This outstanding performer in the School of Physics must have a great influence on his family, but unlike Wang Mengxiang, Wang Yanqing is not interested in physics, but has always been curious about the stars in the sky. Therefore, after seeing the news in the newspaper, He went to Bowen College, and to Xiaoming's relief, this Wang Yanqing also seemed to have the courage to accept new things. What he didn't understand was that Yan Zhengai, the old magician, actually stayed His Royal Highness, Kaoman has been hurt badly by this horoscope. If it wasn't because Kaoman didn't like poetry and books when he was young, and only read these astrological techniques, Kaoman wouldn't be still in the street for fortune-telling for a lot of age today. If His Highness hadn't woken up, Kaoman would have thought that changed Jade Rabbit lived on this moon, but it turns out that there is nothing on it, just a pile of pits. Yan Zhengai was full of tears. This Yan Zhengai's age is already very old in Dao Kingdom. Although his body looks tough, but the years are not forgiving, it can still be seen that he is slow in action. He was down and out all his life, without children and daughters. He lived day by day. Now that he saw that his ability to eat is fake, he missed his time, and he couldn't help but hated His Royal Highness. Please accept the Kaoman. The Kaoman will definitely study it carefully, so that the people understand that the earth is round, and it also revolves around the sun. Yan Zhengai said, as the saying goes, the one who hates a certain profession the most is the one who does it, and Yan Zhengai is now responding to this sentence. Xiaoming nodded. In this case, this telescope will be handed over to the two of you. The astronomy books are in the school. You can verify everything this king said against the books, and this king is also waiting for you to tell the people with facts. Prove it. Wang Yanqing and Yan Zheng nodded as soon as they heard the words. Seeing that it was getting late, Xiaoming turned around and walked out. He hoped that the old and the young would have an ideological impact on King Zhao. This war was both a crisis and an opportunity. He hoped to take this opportunity to popularize some simple scientific knowledge. At least some people can come out of the deep ignorance. It was already 8 o'clock when I returned to the palace, and the pendulum clock in the bedroom was swinging gently back and forth to make a tick-tock sound. Fei Yuer was sitting on the table embroidering. Seeing Xiaoming returning, she asked, "Your Highness has eaten?" "I ate at Bowen College." Xiaoming stretched at this time. Fei Yu put down the embroidery in her hand and stepped forward. She stretched out her hand to gently squeeze Xiaoming, and said softly, "Your Highness has to take care of your body during this time. So what should I do if I'm exhausted? This king is not so delicate yet. These things can still be handled." Xiaoming squinted and enjoyed Fei Yuer's massage, but as soon as he relaxed, he suddenly remembered what Pang Yukan and Fiji said during the day. After hesitating for a while, he asked, "Elder Fei Jie didn't say anything to you?" Fei Yuer's hands suddenly froze for a while. Xiaoming's thoughts were broken. The old boy really tried hard from the side. Sure enough, Fei Yuer said, "Daddy talked about the elder sister today. The emperor was abolished, and the elder sister was also imprisoned, and also said that Queen Zhao was also imprisoned by King Zhao, but later, for the sake of her and her children, Queen Zhao was imprisoned, forced to admit the 13th prince's ascension to the throne in desperation." Speaking of this, Fei Yuer, she couldn't help feeling a little sad. She said, "Dad also said that my sister is still very dangerous now. If there's an accident, his only grandson will be gone." Hey, this king originally thought that Queen Zhao and King Zhao were on the same page, but I didn't expect that Queen Zhao was also a loyal person. She just made a wrong step and made a mistake. If it wasn't for Queen Zhao, who won over so many generals of the Forbidden Army for Her Highness, it was only because of King Zhao's reconciliation. How can you easily enter Chang'an City? Xiaoming sighed. I'm afraid that Queen Zhao was also deceived by the Crown Prince. Now the Crown Prince deserves what he deserves, but the elder sister suffers. When the elder sister married the prince, she was pregnant again in the first month. Why is the concubine still not pregnant? Today, the mother concubine also asked about this time, and the concubine was terrified. "Your Highness, the son of Yan Mian is a woman. It's an important task. Is it that the concubine can't?" "Don't think nonsense. This is the king's problem." Xiaoming sighed. After all, this is all about this problem. It seems that Fiji is not only working hard at Fei Yuer, but also at concubine Zhen. Your Highness's question. How can this be good? Fei Yuer covered her mouth. Your Highness, this time there are quite a few imperial doctors from Chang'an. Do you want them to take the pulse of His Highness? No need. Xiaoming's face was depressed. He was not infertile. As a modern person, wouldn't he count his days? Thinking of this, he explained to Fei Yuer. Fei Yuer was stunned for a moment, and then she realized that Xiaoming did it on purpose anyway. This king is also for your own good. After all, you were still young at that time, but this king also thought about it. What Pang Xiaofu and Fei Jie said makes sense. It is in troubled times. If this king has any emergency, they should continue to follow. who? If they have children, they will be reassured, at least the country will not be chaotic, which will also stabilize people's hearts. Xiao Ming said in this world, there is no arrogance, and when he is angry about the surrender of the whole world, in fact, every general and every soldier under his command has his own ideas isn't the reason why so many people follow him so zealously that there will be a peaceful world in the future, so that they can live a comfortable life. So, on the way back, he figured out this matter, and in fact he is not too young, and he should give birth to an heir, extending his blood. His Royal Highness finally figured it out. Fei Yu'er turned from behind Xiao Ming to him, with a smile on her face. If this king can't figure it out, it is estimated that the two of them will talk behind this king every day. Xiao Ming stood up. At this time, he suddenly hugged Fei Yu'er in front of him, causing Fei Yu'er to exclaim, "His Royal Highness, what are you doing?" Fei Yu'er's face was flushed. Of course it is the descendant of the continuous line. Xiao Ming laughed loudly. Chapter 549 Soldiers approaching the city. On the official road of Yizhao covered with lois, a row of carriages pulling field guns is slowly advancing on the city wall. Lu Fei was watching the convoy with a telescope. Next to him was Luo Xin. It had been 2 days since they arrived in Yizhao. At this time, seeing the last batch of artillery arrive, Lu Fei breathed a sigh of relief. He said, "Mummy, your artillerymen are really tortoises. I'll be grateful if you don't come here again." Luo Xin rolled his eyes. "You speak very lightly. This gun is 400 or 500 pounds. You can try to pull one. Okay, I won't talk to you. Now that the field artillery has arrived, it's time to take Pengzhou City." Lu Fei said, I must fight a beautiful battle this time, so as not to be shot by your firearms." The soldiers of the battalion were underestimated. Luo Xin shook his head. Since the Qingzhou army was equipped with firearms, this was the first time the two led the army independently. They understood what Xiao Ming meant. Now that the world is in chaos, Qingzhou may encounter multifaceted battles. At this time, they need people who can fight well. General, this time Xiao Ming sent the two to make it clear that he wanted to hand over all the battles in the direction of Wei to the two. The two were also very excited about this. The two came down from the city wall quarreling all the way. At this time, the troops from the 3 prefectures in the Yizhao camp were training together. This time, the infantrymen of the firearms battalion were 20,000 people, and the 5,000 cavalry soldiers were transferred later. The army that attacked Pengzhou this time consisted of 20,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry. For Qingzhou, the scale of this army was already very large. After all, when the barbarians fought in Yizhao last year, it was only this number of troops. Straight back to the camp, Lu Fei dispatched the generals who participated in the siege this time. After a while, more than 30 generals gathered in Lu Fei's camp. At this time Lu Fei said, "Everyone, the field artillery has arrived, and the flintlock guns and plate armor have also been sent to the soldiers. It can be said that everything is ready now. According to the battle plan we made at the beginning, we will repair it today, and tomorrow we will attack Pengzhou City along the Bian River." Luo Hong nodded. "The soldiers are very fast. We should be caught off guard by the defenders of Pengzhou City, and quickly capture Pengzhou City." Xiao Luo is right. This time we will divide our troops into 2 groups. One part will go down the Bian River by boat to first solve the navy in Pengzhou City, and the other part will be led by Luo Xin, starting from the official road and reaching the bottom of Pengzhou City. At that time, we will join forces and take Pengzhou City in one fell swoop. Lu Fei knocked on the table. "Yes, General Lu." The general said this time, when Lu Fei led his troops on the expedition, Xiao Ming gave him the title of General of the Southern Expedition and gave him the Tiger Talisman, all of which enabled him to lead the army smoothly. A plan was made, and the generals went back to prepare. The next day Lu Fei personally boarded the boat with 3,000 musketeers and went down the river, while Luo Xin took 5,000 cavalry and 17,000 infantry to Pengzhou City. Yizhao is located in the southwest of Kiti, only 100 miles away from Pengzhou City. Starting in the morning, Lu Fei arrived on the Bianshu River outside Pengzhou City in the afternoon. Looking at Pengzhou City, which was built near the water, Lu Fei let out a sneer. In his opinion, although the folk customs of Pengzhou City are sturdy, he will feel scared when facing soldiers with sturdy firearms. When the 3 battleships slowly approached, the city walls of Pengzhou suddenly became a mess, and now the soldiers in Wei and Qi are already aware of it. In the past 2 days, even the eldest son of the Mi family, Mi Wenai, has returned to Pengzhou City to prepare for the battle. It can be said that the soldiers of Pengzhou City have always been nervous. Now that the 3 battleships full of soldiers appeared, they immediately understood that they should coming enemy attack. Enemy attack, the soldiers on the city wall shouted, and at the same time, some soldiers quickly went to the crossbow and aimed the crossbow at the forward warship, while some soldiers went down the city wall to report the incident. At this time, in the Mi mansion in Pengzhou City, Mi Wenyi was feasting on the banquet of the contemporary Great Clan. This time he was assigned by the King of Wei to Pengzhou City to guard the city in person, so as soon as he arrived in Pengzhou City, he invited the local clan to discuss the matter together. While everyone was enjoying singing and dancing, eating, drinking, and having fun, a general suddenly broke in and said to Mi Wenyi, "Mi Changshi, 3 battleships full of soldiers appeared outside the city, probably the army of King Qi." "The army of King Qi? How come so quickly? Is there really going to be a war now?" Everyone was talking. Mi Wenyi's eyes narrowed, and he said to the general, "How many people are there?" "There are less than 1,000 soldiers on the battleship, but the last general thought that there must be soldiers hidden in the cabin. It should be between 2,000 and 3,000. The general said there are only 3,000 people. I have 50,000 elite guards in Pengzhou City, and there are more than 30,000 private soldiers in various tribes. The enemy soldiers are not to be feared." An old man at the banquet said that he was Pengzhou City. The head of the Lu family, the second largest family. Others echoed, "That's right, these 3,000 people are not enough for us to stuff our teeth, and this King Qi has underestimated our Pengzhou at this time." A young man said loudly, "Mi Changshi, I have more than 30 warships of the Pengzhou Navy. Why don't we send the Navy to sink these 3 warships in the river, feed the fish?" Different from the optimism of these local clans, Mi Wenyi said, "You must not underestimate King Qi's army. The King Qi's defeat of the barbarians in the Battle of Kangzhou and Jizhou is enough to show the strength of his army. This time they just sent these soldiers here. I'm afraid it's not arrogance, but confidence that these soldiers can take Pengzhou City." There were still some people at the banquet who were very calm, and they nodded in agreement. Mi Wenyi took the opportunity to say, "It's just that the King of Wei and the King of Qi are at odds now, and this Pengzhou City is a battleground for the military. Now that King Qi's troops and horses appear here, they must be trying to capture Pengzhou City. Is there any way for us big clan to survive? 3 years ago, this King Qi slaughtered the local nobles. We all remember it clearly. If he captures Pengzhou City this time, he will definitely not give us a way to survive. That's right, this time we must fight to the death. That's right, if this city is destroyed, it's better to defend Pengzhou City. Now I will assemble the Zhang family's tunes," said one person. "I'll go as well." Mi Wenyi's face was calm, but he breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. With just one sentence, he made the local clan share the same hatred as himself. After coughing, he said, "Everyone, since this is the case, I hope you can help us this time. This time, our Mi family will send all the generals, and we will swear not to let King Qi succeed Mi Changshi Dei. Let's go back and assemble the part, but let's see if this King Qi soldiers are strong, or our soldiers are strong." Chapter 550. On the deck of the Kingzhou battleship, Lu Fei was observing the arrangement of soldiers on the city wall of Pengzhou with a telescope. When he saw these soldiers with swords in their hands, he felt a little more at ease, because there was not a single artillery gun on the Pengzhou city. This arrangement made him boldly let the battleship cruise along the Bianxi River in front of Pengzhou City. For him, as long as there is no artillery, cannot threaten the 3 warships in the river. "Are you afraid?" Lu Fei joked that the soldiers around the same team said that in the Southern Expedition Army, only the Kangzhou Army had been on the battlefield. Most of the soldiers of the Leizhou and Yizhou Army had never seen blood, and the Firearms Battalion had only attacked in Chang'an. The Imperial City has never encountered a real cruel encounter. "Not afraid?" the young soldier beside Lu Fei said. That the soldier under whose tender face was only 16 years old. "Well, you kind of kid, I was a year younger than you when I was going to fight. When you go to the battlefield, as long as you think about killing the enemy, you won't be afraid." Lu Fei laughed. The soldiers on the battleship looked at Lu Fei admiringly. Although Lu Fei's official position in Fengguo was not as good as Nihoben's, he was famous in the army. Therefore, after learning that Lu Fei was in command of the army, the soldiers felt a little bit in their hearts excited. The fact that Lu Fei 3,000 iron cavalry defeated the barbarians was still a good story in the army. Hearing the words, the knuckles holding the flintlock gun turned white from the force, and then nodded fiercely. "General, do you want to give Pengzhou's army a disgrace to let them know how powerful we are?" At this time, a colonel behind Lu Fei suggested. Lu Fei nodded. "Attack the city first. These Pengzhou soldiers have never seen artillery and muskets. We will let them understand what kind of army they will face, and now immediately order the battleship to go to the city gate. Yes, General, the colonel got the order and turned to leave. After a while, the battleship started heading towards the gate of Pengzhou City along the river in Pengzhou City. Mi Wenyi, who learned that King Qi's army was attacking, quickly reached a consensus with the big clan in Pengzhou City. At this time, the Mi family's banquet had ended, and all the clan heads returned to their homes to convene their tribes to assist the Pengzhou army in defending the city. Mi Wenyi also put on a suit of armor and headed towards the city wall. When he boarded the city wall under the protection of the soldiers, he saw 3 battleships coming towards the city gate. At this moment, he couldn't help frowning. In his eyes, the 3 battleships were no different from the 3 merchant ships, and the soldiers on board were only about 2,000 people. Could it be that King Qi's army was going to use these 2,000 people in the city? Landing and siege on the land in front of the gate, Mi Chengshi, all the rope bridges on the Bian River have been demolished. Mi Kuang, the governor of Pengzhou, said to Mi Wenyi that this Mi Kuang is also a member of the Mi family, because the Mi family is powerful and the king of Wei highly values the Mi family, and the local government and military are mostly people who rely on the Mi family. In fact, the military and political power in Pengzhou City was actually controlled by the Mi family. Mi Wenyi glanced at the empty Bianshu River. There used to be a cable bridge extending to the other side facing Pengzhou City. Usually, people and merchants entered Pengzhou City through the cable bridge. The river is the natural mode of Pengzhou City. Well, now let the soldiers prepare rolling stones, kerosene and other items to prevent the enemy from suddenly attacking the city. Mi Wenyi said, now these 3 battleships are very eye-catching. In his eyes it would be very difficult for King Qi's army to cross the 100-meter Bianshu River to reach the city without these 3 battleships, but now these 3 battleships have provided convenience for King Qi's soldiers. Mi Kuang nodded. Just like Mi Wenyi, he also had some thoughts on these 3 ships. He said, Mi Chengshi, it is better to send the Lu family's navy to sink these 3 ships directly, as long as you control the Bian River. Unless King Qi's army grows wings, the river will not be able to attack the city at all. Mi Wenyi said, the Lu family has long since called for battleships to prepare for battle. Now we just need to watch the excitement on the city wall. What Mi Chengshi said was that as long as Lu Jiakan contributed, it would not be easy to take down these 3 ships. Mi Kuang looked at the 3 warships in the river with disdain. Hearing this, Mi Wenyi frowned. He was a little worried. He served under King Wei, but he knew that King Qi had a kind of battleship with artillery. When he learned that there were 3 battleships, he was first shocked, but now he saw these 3 battleships, he didn't see any artillery from above. Mi Wenyi's face was a little gloomy when he thought of the artillery from the battleship. The number of artillery and arquebuses that King Wei obtained from King Zhao was very small. Now these artillery and firearms were left to the army of Jinling City by King Wei, and they did not take any advantage of it. Just as he was thinking, the figure of the Pengzhou navy appeared in the direction of the 3 battleships, and 30 Pengzhou battleships were coming towards the 3 battleships in Qingzhou. Seeing this scene, Mi Wenyi felt a little at ease. Although the size of the Pengzhou battleship was not very large, it was more expensive in number. These 2-deck battleships in the shape of a crescent moon were filled with soldiers with swords and bows and arrows. As soon as the Pengzhou navy appeared, the soldiers on the city wall immediately cheered, hit him hard, sink them in the river to feed the fish, kill them without leaving a piece of armor. These Yu soldiers were either surnamed Mi or Lu, and some belonged to other big surnames, belonging to the clan in the big clan in Pengzhou City. In recent years, they have also been influenced by the big clan, and they are full of vigilance against the king of Qi in the north. When the Pengzhou navy appeared, the 3 Qingzhou warships suddenly adjusted their direction and aimed their sides at the Pengzhou navy that was heading towards them on the battleship. Lu Fei did not pay attention to these intruding navy officers. The battle on the water was naturally commanded by admirals. He was in charge of the land battle. When there was cheers on the city wall, he said, "Where's the rifle team?" "Yes, General." 60 soldiers with rifled guns behind Lu Fei shouted in unison. Lu Fei nodded. There was a 100-meter-long beach in front of the city gate of Pengzhou, followed by the Bian Shui. Now the distance from his position to the city wall is only 150 meters. Give me a few fights and see if they are still rampant. Lu Fei's temper was somewhat restrained, but he was still violent. The soldiers equipped with rifled guns immediately began to reload when they heard the words, and then they aimed their guns at the soldiers on the city wall. Lu Fei was scanning the city wall with his binoculars. When he saw the 2 generals standing next to each other, he suddenly said, "You should go in this direction." Before Lu Fei left this time, Xiao Ming specially asked Lu Fei to bring these soldiers with rifled guns and conical bullets. According to Xiao Ming's words, even if they miss a hit, they can scare a few. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.